If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.
The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Scott Norton, and you're listening to Keepin It Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the ASA podcast on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we'll review Dominion and cover all this news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Please support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leave a rating and review. You can also get all the network's podcasts over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Chop Tea store, chop-tees.com/KI Strong Style. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style merchandise. There's free shipping on every order and 10% off your first order. That is chop-tees.com/KI Strong Style. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. And we are streaming live right now on patreon.com/KI Strong Style for IWGP subscribers. If you want to watch our show live or listen without ads, you can sign up at patreon.com/KI Strong Style. Young boy, welcome back to the show, man.
Yes, the oldest I've ever been on this show is today. But I've never been tired in my life, so I'm ready to be back and crack one open.
What you
for
got
the working
there?
Man?
Aldi water?
No, this is actually an Aldi beer, which, believe it or not, here's the thing. You know me, I'm kind of a beer snob, right?
Yeah,
so typically I don't fuck with Aldi beer, but last couple of years they've had a couple, not a lot. You got basically what you know how we have Cage Match?
Yeah.
Right? And you know how I like Letterboxd for movies? Well, if you want to find out if a beer is good, you go to Beer Advocate.
Okay. Star rating the beers on there.
Yeah, they do. They start. There's another one called Tapped, TAPPD, Tapped, and Beer Advocate. And that's where you find out if a beer is drink worthy or not. And there's a couple. Now, this one's not the best one that they have, honestly. It's the Wernes Gruner Pilsner Legend, but it's not bad. You know, for the price, it's like, I don't know, $7-8 for like, or maybe it might be more than that. Here's the thing. These days, Big Buck Smith, you know,
so
I just Instacart it. I don't really look too much.
This man don't got to check the price. Whatever he wants, he can have it.
You know, we went to the water park on Saturday and I was like, yeah, give me the Rum Runner bucket. And My wife was like, how much is that? And I was like, I don't know. Does it matter? What's it going to be? $20 tops because we're at a fucking gimmick kid water park. And yes, it was around 20-ish bucks. But yeah, no. This is an affordable, nice, easy drinking, 5% alcohol. It's a solid little beer. They got a couple that are.
So what was the star rating on it on the website?
On Werner's Gruner? I could look it up for you. I don't know. Because this isn't the best one that Aldi has. Like they have a couple that like you have to catch them when it's, available basically,
A seasonal kind of gimmick.
Some of them, they got a dark beer right now that's pretty good, but I'll tell you what the Werner's Gruner is a solid 80. This is a 4-star beer, which is good. It is a good beer. And bro, I'm telling you, most of the Aldi beers, like a couple years ago, it was like 67. We're talking like 2-star beers. But this German one, it's got an 80, and
so you agree with the rating.
I agree with the 259 reviewers that have reviewed it. But here's the thing. It's actually got a 3.5 average. So it's like, I think that you rate it out of 5 and then they aggregate the score based on who knows what. But yeah, it's got an 80. It's not bad. It's a solid little beer.
Nice.
So, yep, sipping on that 1 pint for my homies. And I'm glad to be back on the show. Shout out to everybody that held down the show. How many weeks was I off? 4 weeks?
3, 4. So I did 1 solo week. Then I had Suit Williams on.
Suit.
I had Scotty Wrestling from Count Out, and then I had Samsa on. So yeah, 4 weeks.
Yeah, so 4 weeks. So thank you to those guys for holding it down. Thank you, Jeremy. I spent some of this time, honestly, guys, I'll just crack it open a little bit, focusing a little bit on family, focusing on my own mental health. Had to get a couple things in order. And I spent a lot of that time not really watching much wrestling. Sometimes you have to take a break. I'll be honest with you. I do want to go back and probably watch the finals and probably watch, like, I know that you're high on the Hiromu and
Akira.
Francesco Akira match. So I'm probably going to go back and catch those. But other than what we reviewed early on, like the first couple Cork and Hall nights, I didn't really watch much of this tour. And it didn't seem like I missed much.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate you guys holding down the fort, especially you, Jeremy, just keeping the show going. And I'm sure at some point in time, I'll be able to do the same. And as everybody that's listened, I am equipped somewhat to record on my own. So,
well, yeah, that's a perfect segue into plugging your Patreon series, Tanahashi Ace of the Universe. The first episode came out last week. It is free on our Patreon, so available for the public. Episode 1, go to patreon.com/KI Strong Style. You can listen to the first episode of that. And then every week after that, it will be on our $5 tier. So you can upgrade to the grade 1 level $5 tier. You'll get that. You'll get all the bonus archive audio. You'll get the show ad free. So it's definitely a great tier to be on there. And Josh, I checked it out. Well, obviously, I edited, and so I listened to the episode, checked it out, and yeah, it was great stuff. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. One of these days we'll get the Donovan digest going again. We'll get
well, I got one out when Naito left, and yeah, I've been struggling on the Dominion deep dive.
With the Dominion deep dive, were you just reviewing the main events of each show?
Yeah. Up next, I got Fale and Nakamura, the IC title.
That's gonna be a struggle.
Maybe that's why I've been delaying it.
It's not a bad match though, honestly.
Like, yeah, I think I've watched that match. I think it was a recommended match of the week before, I think.
Yeah, they've had a couple good matches, Fale and Nakamura, but I'm very excited about this project. Anybody that's I would implore you, if you're listening right now and you don't know about this project, go to our Patreon. The first episode is free. Shout out to, I didn't do a good job on the first episode thanking people, but like shout out to Rich Latta, Chris Samsa for helping contribute to the theme song and making that happen. Shout out to Alan Forel and Damon McDonald from Super J Cast for providing me with some archival footage to kind of help me complete the project. And, also to Chris Charlton. I'll be reading a few excerpts with his permission from Eggshells that kind of add a little bit of color and commentary to the historical ongoing. So, it's not just me by myself, but the basis of the project, the pitch in a can is each year of Tanahashi's career reviewed in each episode. So from 1999 up until his retirement at the Dome this coming year in 2026, we're like 200 some odd days away, and there will be an episode coming out every single week. And you're not just getting a review of his history of his career, although that's part of it, but you're going to get context of what was going on within the company that year, the history of Puroresu, the history of his rivalries, tournaments, title challenges, title changes. Basically, it's comprehensive. And I feel confident saying this, Jeremy. I am not only the only, but the best person covering his career year by year systematically over a 28 week podcast. I don't know anybody else that is doing a project like this. So I'm the best at it.
The ace.
Yeah, the ace by default, because there's nobody else crazy enough to take on a project like this. And and there's going to be match reviews, recommended match reviews, 2 for each episode minimum. I've already got the whole list out, written out, and I've done quite a bit of research. I'm ready right now today to put like at least 4 of these in the can, even though there's like going to be 28 of them. But the hardest part's just researching, making sure that you have your facts, you have your information in front of you. But doing the audio, that's the bread and butter. We do that every week. That's no problem. And I'm looking forward to it because it is a passion project, and I want people to hear it. I am wondering if like at some point we like paywall it for a period, and then as time goes on, maybe make some of them available, that sort of thing. But I think that if you guys want, the comprehensive history of Tanahashi's career leading up to the Dome, this is where you should go to get it. And it's $5 is a steal.
Yeah, so get on that $5 tier. Check out the episode. Really, really great stuff. So yeah, 1 every week will be coming out of that. And then, like I said, there's also my first few episodes of my Dominion Deep Dives up on there on the $5 tier. I will try to get back up on that. And yeah, any bonus audio we do, get the show ad-free. So if you hate ads, get the show ad-free there. So yeah, so great stuff over at patreon.com/KI Strong Style. And next thing real quick, I've failed to announce the May Wrestler of the Month and Match of the Month. And I know you really haven't checked out New Japan in May, but here's my recommendations. Match of the month, I'm going with Hiromu Takahashi versus Francesco Akira. There were a couple other contenders there in May. It was the Callum Newman Goto title match. You had the Mercedes Moné 3-way match from California. So there was a few other matches in the month of May, some other Super Junior stuff, but to me, I felt like Hiromu and Akira, Cork and Hall, that was one of the best matches in the whole tournament and one of the best matches in the whole month.
And Super Junior Finals fell in June, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. I was like, is this better than the, 5-star classic according to Dave Meltzer?
Oh my gosh, freaking Dave-flation. And I listen to Observer every week. I love Dave and Brian, but the star ratings are, some of them it's getting a little egregious on some things.
Listen, I feel as time goes on, I'm being more and more vindicated, because when was the Super Junior Finals with Ishimori and Hiromu? Was that 2018?
Yeah, 2018.
Yeah, when that rolled around in 2018, I was like, oh, we have passed the like threshold of like, these don't make sense anymore, because granted, I get the concept, a match can be better, quote unquote, than 5 stars. But then when you rate something over that edge, and there were things in the past that are just about as good, but they're like in the 4.5, 4.25 range, everything gets thrown out of whack. Like, honestly, he probably really should just have kept everything on the same grading scale.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. When you say that it's out of infinity, you're like, oh, it will, because that's his answer. He's like, it's out of infinity. If it's out of infinity and the highest you've ever rated match was 8 stars or whatever, is it 8? Is his highest?
Is it? It's still 7.
Or was it 7?
I think 7's still the highest, I think.
Okay, my bad. If 7 is the highest out of infinity, then all of wrestling fucking sucks by comparison.
Nobody's come
just
close.
Logically,
yeah,
logically, no one's ever had a really, really, really great match. Like that's a cop-out answer. The reality is that his scale has always been 5. Anything above it has always been like breaking the scale, which is fine. He did that back in the 90s too. It's not like it just first happened with Omega and Okada, but there is inflation going on. Like it took like 20 something years for WWE to get a 5-star match. And now they pump them out all the time. I watched that TLC match on TV just to see what the fuck it was that was happening. That was not a 5-star.
Yeah.
The idea that was even, bro, that's not even close to like one of the greatest ladder matches I've ever seen in my life. Like it was average, mid as fuck. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. And this Vegeta was not 5 1/4 or whatever he gave it. No, it was a great tournament final, but it wasn't 5, wasn't above 5. No.
Did you feel like what you were watching was better than Flair Steamboat? Like, that's the question you have to ask yourself.
Bro, it wasn't better than Ospreay Shingo 2019.
Yeah, like that's what you have to ask yourself. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's fine. You know,
it is.
As time goes on, it is becoming a thing where like I always will respect what Dave. Here's one thing I will say. With Dave's ratings, it's a good indication of like a learning tool to like figure out what's good. And if you speak Dave, you kind of understand where he's coming from. And obviously we don't all agree on all the same stuff. Everything's subjective, but like the grading part of what he does is so minuscule. What really like impresses me about Dave Meltzer, because you gave me the Observer newsletter, login recently so I could do some research, which thank you for that.
Yeah.
And it's like you log in to a random 1999 Observer and it's like all the matches that happened, all the news, all the reviews. It's a book. Every single week this dude is putting out a book's
thousands
worth of content.
Thousands of words.
And he's been doing it since the 80s. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like we're coming up on like close to 50 years of this dude putting out like thousands and thousands and thousands of words on a weekly basis. And anybody who doesn't respect Dave, even if you don't agree with him, if you just don't respect Dave, you don't know what he does. Like you have literally never opened an Observer newsletter and just read it, because if you ever read it, even though there's stuff to criticize, like Dave's not the best writer, and he's definitely he has tons of typos and weird shit. But at the same time, like it's really hard not to be impressed with what he does day in and day out. I know I couldn't do that shit. Like we barely are able to do this show, and people consider this a lot of content. It's nothing compared to what he's been doing weekly for decades.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, the amount of written words, the amount of audio that he's done throughout the years now, and it's been 20 years since Observer and Figure 4 have come together, and all the stuff that him and Brian do. Yeah, it's great stuff.
Yeah, that's the other crazy thing. When you consider everything else he does aside from just the newsletter with the audio and all the sports coverage and yada yada, like it's getting in arguments with no-name blue check marks every day on Twitter. I mean,
fighting with Eric Bischoff and what's his face? What's the other WCW guy? Vince Russo.
Vince Russo. Yeah, how does he find the time?
Yeah. Oh man. So yeah, all that to say, yeah, Hiromu Akira match of the month, wrestler of the month. I'm giving it to Hiromu Takahashi. Again, there are some other people you could probably throw up there, but when I look back at just my ratings and the bulk of the tournament, Hiromu in A block was consistently the best performer throughout the month of May. So I'm giving it to the ticking time bomb, Hiromu Takahashi.
Awesome. Well, that is going to do it for our awards for the
Yeah. So Trish, drop that in the newsletter. Get those awards out there. So let's jump into Dominion. So we had Dominion June 15th in Osaka, Joe Hall. We had an attendance of 6,525, so down 10% from last year, which was 7,254, that Desperado Ishimori main event with the Super Junior Finals. Then 2023, it was 7,040. That was the Sonata Tsuji title match. And then it was higher than 2022, which was 6,068 with the Okada Jay White main event. And we did have a couple questions here. Def Triangle 720 says, do you think it's just bad timing or a lack of hot feuds for the Dominion attendance dropping from last year? And Lucky Charms 93 says, thoughts on Dominion ticket sales plummeting as compared to the 2024 version of the show?
I don't know if plummeting might be too strong a word.
That's kind of strong, yeah.
But here's the reality. Prior to the pandemic, Dominion averaged around 11 to 12,000 attendance seats, and we've never recovered back to close around that sort of business. They're hovering around the 6,000, 7,000 mark. And that's why I'm like, it's hard. I'm not trying to play devil's advocate. I will be honest. I don't think 6,500 is a healthy or strong number for them necessarily. I do also think, though, that you have to put it in the context of, like, they just lost Naito. That's a huge freaking blow on top of all the other stars that they've lost over the subsequent years. So I think that this number could have potentially, believe it or not, I think been worse because the numbers were down. And then they announced the main event with Shingo and Goto, and they started selling more tickets, and it kind of popped up. So I feel like, and then if you just listen to the reactions from the live audience, it was very clear the match that they were there for, most interested in and invested in, was Goto and Shingo. So that's a testament to some credit going to where credit is due, but it's not like the rest of the year where Goto is headlining and they're doing higher numbers than they were doing for other shows previously. Dominion is, considered a tentpole event for New Japan, and you would expect with them having momentum and being in the midst of this successful title run that maybe they would have done a better number than they did. And it is unfortunate. I don't feel like it is a super strong or healthy number, though, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's just a fine number. And, speaking of what you were saying, I pulled up Dominion 2019 that had 11,901. So, yeah, so really strong numbers pre-pandemic. And then, post-pandemic kind of slowly crawling up to the peak of 7,254 last year. But, 6,525. I wouldn't say it's like, they need to, run to the hills or going out of business. But, it's not a great number either, especially being down from last year and having, a junior match in the main event. You would think that with a heavyweight title match like Goto and Shingo, the narrative would be like, oh, it's going to be a stronger card. And I don't think timing really has anything to do with it. I mean, Dominion is around the same time every year. This kind of June time period. It's usually always on a Sunday. So I know the date changes every year, but it's the same time period. So I don't think it's a timing. I do think, there were probably some matches or feuds that weren't as excited or fully built up. And, you had the Super Juniors tours. There was no road to Dontaku to really drive home some of the heavyweight feuds. And also Shingo and Goto, like you mentioned, was a great match to have to, sell tickets. But even that feud wasn't really built super strong. You had the Shingo kind of coming out and, jumping himself into the Goto Saber post-match promo that got him to the spot. And then they had like one or two preview matches, and that was it. Like, there wasn't really a ton of meat behind there. Gabe and Tsuji, again, I mean, that's a great rivalry, that a great match in February. But with Gabe being in AEW, there was like one or two preview matches, not a ton going there. And I feel like you go through the card, like a lot of these matches, there wasn't a lot of heat behind a lot of these matches.
I can't say for sure, but I can't 100% discount the idea that the controversy surrounding Gabe Kidd potentially also hurt ticket sales when it comes to fan interest in that particular matchup, because they didn't seem to be as hot of a crowd for that match in general. It was something he felt compelled to bring up during the press conference. It was mentioned on commentary, and it was, dealt with in Tokyo Sports. So I do wonder, I obviously they're not the headline, so it's not like you can put all of the weight or blame. It's not like we're looking for a scapegoat here, but I also wonder, like, had that match been hyped up, had that AEW controversy not taken place, could that have helped things as opposed to been like a kind of quasi black mark on the show?
Yeah, that's a possibility. Also, missing El Desperado, the guy who was in the main event the previous year with the bigger house. And I do think Despy's a big star, and a lot of people complained about Desperado and Fujita not being on this card. So again, was that another blow to this card of lack of interest?
Yeah, I mean, I listened to the show last week and I heard what you and Chris had to say, and you mentioned something along the lines of like, the show is already stacked. They don't necessarily need them, but if it's a show that's lacking in like hot feuds like you talked about, that probably could have potentially helped things.
Yeah.
Especially with like Desperado's like one of the most popular guys in the company. He's not even anywhere on the show at all. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, and they could have cut the Young Lion match. They could have cut.
Whoa! cut the Young Lion match. That's crazy.
Oiwa and Saber versus ELP and Shota. Like, did you really need that on this card?
That's the wrong. No, it's the X match. You should have cut Don Fale's match. That's the match that did not need to take place.
Yeah, it didn't. But obviously that they're all in on House of Torture.
Fuck them.
Oh man. So yeah. So I think there's a lot of different factors you can point to. I'll say we'll never know the full answer, but yeah, not the best number here.
I still do think though that the biggest thing for me probably has to be the lack of Naito on the card. Like, what are the chances that him not being on the show has a 0% chance of affecting the tickets negatively,
Yeah. And Chris was saying last week, he was saying, Tanahashi's only had like, I think it was like 3 or 4 singles matches, and like Okada and Naito had a bunch of singles matches at Dominion. And Naito is always kind of a staple of the show. So, yeah, him missing, that makes a ton of sense. And, they've failed to really capitalize with somebody like Hiromu. Hiromu nowhere on this card. He's a guy that kind of has that LIJ essence, that Naito essence that they could be working off of, but they just refuse to, pump the juice out of that.
We'll talk about it, but no Hiromu in the G1 is fucking bewildering. This show, bewildering.
Oh yeah,
so many creative directions, just bewildering.
Yeah,
I waited to skip the high flying, right? Because we've talked about it in the past. Like, New Japan, the equivalent of like Diva Wrestling would be juniors. They don't have females to denigrate, so the second class citizens got to be the small guys, and that's why I boycotted this year's Super Juniors, because I like to punch down. And I thought to myself, we'll skip the boring shit, the high flying, the flip floppy. We'll get to the real shit in Osaka Joe Hall. And boy, there's some good stuff here, but boy, what a show. Like,
yeah. And also I feel like this show really kind of sums up what Chris and I were talking about with New Japan's 2025. It being a very up and down kind of year, some good matches, some really strange and bad booking calls. I think this is a perfect example of that with this show.
I felt like, honestly, it was mostly down. Even when there's ups, this show was, I don't know, man. There was so many unfulfilled. And it's weird because I didn't want to come back to the show and be sourpuss, like, disgruntled anti-New Japan guy. I'm sure there's probably gonna be fans tuning in who are, this is the first time ever them listening to us, and like, these guys don't even like the product. And it's not that, like, but if you actually care about the company and you care about the product and you're realistic about what you're seeing, I think there were things to enjoy about the show for sure. But creatively, man, there's so many things to criticize here that, like, I think my analytical brain is like, we have to talk about it. Like, we can't just ignore some of these I don't know, some of these weird directions that we're taking.
Yeah, I was baffled by a lot of stuff.
We.
But let's jump into it. So show opened up, kickoff match. We had Katsuya Murashima and Shomakato defeating Daiki Nagai and Masatora Yasuda 8 minutes to 15 seconds. So just our current crop of young lions mixing it up here in the older class getting the win.
I'm probably jaded a little bit because I've been watching so much late 90s, early 2000s young lion matches from like a pretty stellar cast of young lions being like Shibata, Tanahashi, Makabe, Kensa Suzuki, Wataru Nui. Like that's a pretty stellar class, and watching these guys, like they are very good, but there's a lot of kind of loosey-goosey stuff going on in this match, which is weird because I feel like I don't usually completely feel that way when I watch this particular class of guys compete against one another. The one who I was most surprised with like the loosey-goosiness and kind of like misdirections and not really cohesive gelling with everybody else was Masatori Yasuda. Like there just seemed to be like timing issues there and maybe not like the snuggest stuff, sloppiness with the rope running. And usually with the young lions, like this stuff is like very crisp, very, very good. The other thing too is like, I think that everybody's coming along. I think, I don't know why Shomakato has the emo haircut. That's fine. Murashima is definitely like filling out. Daiki Nagai's got the fire. I think he's probably still to this day, like the standout guy that everyone's like pointing to just based on his like self-assuredness and attitude. Mm-hmm. But bro, when are we going to get some real fucking dudes in this young lion, in the class? Like,
well, we'll talk about it a little bit later. There are two new young lions debuting on the Soul Tour.
They're fucking little. I'm talking about beefy dudes. The likes of an Oleg Bolton. When are we gonna get some beefy boys in? Like
Kitamura,
what's Aaron Wolf? Yeah, like a Kitamura. What's Aaron Wolf doing? Are they able to get this guy signed to New Japan? Like the future is always gonna be heavyweight. So we're signing a bunch of fucking juniors, and like sure they could do squats and neck bridges, but like I want someone who can like eat chonko and beat ass. Like what are we doing?
Yeah, I think with Yasuda, I think he was off for a little bit. I think he had an injury at some point, so I think he might have had some ring rust there a little bit. But yeah, I mean, these guys, I mean, they're fine. I don't think anybody. I mean, I think Daiki Nagai is the standout of the class, but even then, like none of these guys I think are really like super like for sure. Like people are talking about them as like they're going to be the aces and main eventers, and you never know what's going to happen on an excursion or in a new gimmick change. But I don't know.
Like the last time it felt like we had actual serious heavyweights in the Young Lions division was like 2016 when it was like Kitamura and Oka. Holy shit, these dudes. And it didn't work out, but at the time it was like, damn. Like, look at that dude's traps.
Yeah. And even after those guys, like that 2018, 2019, I feel like you had like a lot of dumb jock, like those LA Dojo guys.
I should take that back. I guess we did have them, and we had Tsuji, and I should probably take that back because Tsuji has always been, that's a big boy, and Tsuji is like, Tsuji has even still to this day has more size than all of his counterparts, even the ones who compete at heavyweight.
Yeah, we had Coughlin too in that mix.
Those guys are white though; they don't count. We're talking domestic Japanese stars who are going to bite down on their fucking, mouth guards and punch each other in the face and shit like that. That's what I'm looking for. Where is the Shinihan that Inoki dreamed of? Where is that shit?
So fine opener here, and we'll see when these guys go on excursion, what the future plans for these guys are.
Yuji Nagata is not walking through that door. Kensuke Sasaki is not walking through that door.
So the main card opened up. We had the House of Torture with Ren Narita, Sonata, and Yujiro. in their mystery revealed X, the former Bad Luck Fale, now known as Don Fale, defeating the War Dogs team of Chase Owens, Clark Connors, Joe Maloney, and Taiji Ishimori. And like I was, part of my prediction kind of came through. I was thinking that Chase was going to be just doing a double turn. He would be the X, but we did get Don Fale and Chase. Mid-match did turn on the War Dogs and also align with House of Torture, which allowed Sonata to use the guitar once again on Maloney and get the pin on Drilla.
I once had an uncle through marriage who's since been divorced out of the family, and his name was Don, and he fucking sucked, and so does Fale.
Yeah, I think that the main question is, what's going on with the Rogue Army? Like, this man just left them boys high and dry.
There's no Fale dojo. They're saying that there's going to be ongoing Tamashi. I don't see how. Here's the thing with Fale. First off, I misheard them when I was watching this, and I thought they were calling him Dog Fale, and I was like, why the fuck is he Dog Fale if he joined the House of Torture and not the War Dogs? Like, this doesn't make sense. Is he appropriating the dog out of their, I don't get what the fuck is happening here. And I just don't know why they have to pick, literally one of the worst possible choices for X. Like last week, you guys were talking about Taguchi being X earlier this year was the worst X. That's not the case any longer. Fale being X is way worse.
Yeah.
And how is this guy continuously able to finesse a fucking paycheck out of this company? Who does he have dirt on in this company that he's able to continuously get paid for doing the least amount of work and having, I liked Fale 12 years ago. It's 2025, dog. What are we doing?
Yeah, this is not, Fale that was out there with Nakamura and Tanahashi and Okada and, getting, that a few good matches off. This is way, way past the peak. Fale, guy's huge, barely move, lack of motivation. And I don't understand when there's such a struggle in getting the current crop of guys over. They are wasting time, resources, and energy on a guy like Fale, who's the expiration date, it's way past due. And why are we giving this guy a new coat of paint? Why are we trying to make him a spotlight on the second biggest show of the year when someone like Hiromu's on this card, Desperado's on this card, you got other guys stuck in tag matches, but we're going to spotlight and return and repackage Bad Luck Fale.
When Fale was at his apex, which has never really been he's never been top tier guy, but when he was at his best utility is being a dude who competes in the G1 and takes people to the limit and can beat anybody on any given night. It's not that I want to see Fale in 2025 in a G1, but it is very telling that they bring him back on this night and he's not even in the field. He's not even in the play-in rounds.
Yeah, he is.
He is. That's right.
Him and Oiwa.
I forgot. You're right. He might go into the B block, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Never mind. That takes a little bit away from my point. Oh God, if he ends up in the, God. Okay. I'll detract a little bit from what I said there, but it is one of those things where it's at this point we're praying to God that he doesn't show up in the G1. And that used to be his premier time of the year to show up and show out for a match or two with top guys. And we're 7-8 years apart from those matches being good or worthwhile. I don't know, man. As for a company that is in need of a fresh injection of excitement and fundamentals and exciting things to happen, for them to continuously go to the well with guys like Chase Owens and Bad Luck Fale, it's bewildering.
Yeah, and Last Commission 7252 posted a question that somebody posted on Twitter. What is this company's obsession with Bad Luck Fale and Chase? They offer nothing. And I guess because, Fale, he went through the dojo, and Chase, he filled in for one of the Jackson boys at one Super Junior tournament. He showed up during COVID, and these guys have a job for life. And unfortunately, I do think it's almost become like a downside of like the Japanese traditional culture of how things work with companies. Like you have guys like Fale and Chase because they've done, good stuff in the past for the company. They have a job for life and they're not assessing like, all right, are these guys actually valuable and useful for what we're trying to do and moving on with them if they don't need them.
Here's my view on it. If Tony Khan came calling tomorrow and said, you know what, Bad Luck Fale, I'm going to pay you $350,000 annually for the next 3 years to come work in ROH. Are you coming? That man would jump on a fucking plane. if you don't have the loyalty to believe that these guys would, that should be like a litmus test. It's like, would they leave if Tony Khan paid them enough money? And the threshold shouldn't be like exorbitant amounts, like what, Okada and Will Ospreay are making, but like bare minimum, like, would they leave for $200K? And if the answer is yes, then we shouldn't probably keep pumping money into them, because if the loyalty, if it's not a two-way street, why are you continuously feeling obligated to keep these people employed? I don't know.
Yeah. And then
who knows? Maybe there's maybe there's going to be an outcry like there was with R-Truth when it comes to this shit.
Oh man. And then with Chase, he's getting ready to debut against this new Lone Star gimmick. There was this cheesy, horrible promo video that he put together, and New Japan tweeted it out. Lone Star Chase Owens, and he showed off his My First Pony Ride and this horrible bar fight scene. I'm like, what are we doing right now? Like, why? It's like, why are we promoting this guy who's, again, expiration dates passed, and repackaging him, changing things up? It's like, no, Chase is a good pin eater in the Bullet Club. He's a guy that can get an upset win with the package pile driver, but eventually he's going to get that loss back and lose. I don't get it.
Yeah, as far as the match is concerned, I mean, I couldn't even. They went 6 minutes and 44 seconds. I don't know, like as soon as Fale came out and everything was centering around like Chase quivering in fear and shock and amazement at Fale, I just lost all interest in what was happening in the match itself. And we're kind of even skirting around the fact that Sonata came out dressed like bisexual
Giant Gonzalez with like a G-string on. Like, I don't know what the fuck that was about. That was the least ridiculous thing about this match.
That was one of the kinkiest things I've ever seen in the history of New Japan Pro Wrestling. I don't know what the fuck that's about. And you know what? We do need to talk about it, because I was embarrassed while watching him walk out, because I was like, this man was the fucking IWGP World Heavyweight Champion.
Bro, this man was undefeated in the block.
For almost
beat all the young guys. Why?
He was like the ace of the company. Now he's wearing the Seth Rollins red fucking Sonic the Hedgehog boots. Like, why? What the fuck? We've never been more correct ever in our lives than than in 2017 being like, Evil and Sonata are not the way. People are like, you don't get it.
They're great.
They're great. You don't get it.
Oh man.
And here we are in 2025, and we're still living with the sins of the past, of the sins of the father.
Oh my gosh, bro.
Fuck you, Tetsuya Naito. You've injected poison into this company.
This man was Giant Gonzalez, Jeff Jarrett, and Seth Rollins all mixed into one.
At least they finally got a guitar that is a breakaway guitar. Like they I don't know who's making them for them now, but like this is clearly a breakaway guitar. Whereas the one that they were using before, like they just fucked people up with that one. Like that was a real guitar. So that's nice. But even the angle they did here with like the ref bump, and it's like, I don't know. I just thought it was very convoluted. Like it was like they passed the guitar, and then they're gonna hold on, and then they push him down. And it's like, they should have just handed the guitar to Chase, and Chase should have just turned around and fucking clocked
Drilla, yeah.
Drilla, and that been it. So even that was like kind of botched. So I'm like, this is just overdone. All of this is overdone. And here's the last thing I'll say, Jeremy, because this would not be the last time we saw a ref bump on this show. And I know we've seen a lot of ref bumps. We've complained about them over the years. It is getting fucking egregious. And I know nothing's going to change, but the reality is they need to put a kibosh on ref bumps for a long time in this company. Like if there was one thing they could do that would change everything and refresh the company in such a minor way, it would cost them nothing, is just stop doing ref bumps. I'm not even saying forever. I'm just saying like for a majority of the year, maybe you do one a year, but you just stop doing them. Because when I look back and I started racking my brain, and I was like, did they do this in the 70s, 80s, or 90s? And I started trying to think of any match that I ever saw in New Japan from its first 4 decades. I couldn't think of any ref bumps until like probably the NWO in 2000, like 1998. And I'm like, holy shit, like they could really just like stop. The same way how like in the 80s when UWFI came around and they stopped doing the fuck finishes in both All Japan and New Japan, and it changed business. They just stopped doing ref bumps for a long time, and maybe bring them back, sprinkle them in, but like they just don't mean anything. They're just it's so fucking lazy and overdone. And you want to talk about non-sports centric, the king of sports. This is the most least sports centered thing you could ever do, is just bump the refs.
Yeah, it's horrible. And, I would even be fine if I agree with you. It shouldn't happen it shouldn't be a once a year kind of thing. But even if they started doing it just once a card, like one bump in a card, fine. But on this show, you had multiple bumps in multiple matches. Like it was just overkill. And I feel like it was killing the crowd also as the show went on.
Well, this crowd was not excited when Fale came out. They weren't excited when Chase switched. And then, you saw the number lines like shift heavily within the course of one match from House of Torture to, from War Dogs to House of Torture. Someone, I don't know who it was, I'd like to give him credit, but someone in our Discord said, I just realized that these two groups, it's hot dog. Is basically like that's the feud. You got House of Torture hot, War Dogs dogs. The feud is hot dogs. Like that's what the fuck we're watching.
Yeah, and I thought the dog pound cage match was a blow off, but no, we got to keep it rolling.
That did not feel like a blow off to me, honestly, and that was one of the reasons I didn't love that particular match.
Yeah,
we got to keep it going. So.
Yeah. So moving on from there, we had the TMDK team of Rei Oiwa and Zack Sabre Jr. defeating El Phantasmo and Shota Umino in 11 minutes and 23 seconds. So ELP and Umino have been teaming up a lot recently. We know Oiwa is studying under Zack and TMDK. So that's kind of the build of this tag match here. And also there's a history between Umino and Sabre with their world title matches. And then Sabre has a lot of history with ELP in that TV title. And then Oiwa also trying to surpass, Shota Umino as the top young guy. So a lot of elements in play here in this matchup.
Have I not been paying attention, or was this the first time Oiwa's debuted the Trunks?
No, he debuted the Trunks when he challenged Takeshita for the Never title.
I forgot about that. I feel like I was wondering, I was like, where did his tights go? Have I just not been paying close attention? Like what happened here? But yeah, he came out with the Trunks with Zack. There's definitely a fan base that's very excited and interested in the subtext of this burgeoning friendship between ELP and Shota Umino. With Umino, like they pointed out pretty correctly, like he went to the all white, shaved his head, went back to basics, started cosplaying Kensuke Sasaki, didn't work out from him, to a tournament final failure, and 2 title challenges later failed. He's kind of back to square one, and now he's sort of teaming up with ELP, who's like, I guess, trying to inject color into his life. sort of like an odd bedfellows sort of situation. Mm-hmm. The thing though is New Japan isn't really great at telling these types of stories. Like they're okay at like doing it for a tour as a ha-ha thing, but not like as a follow through to really inject new life into a character. So like there are those people out there that I think are watching this and they're waiting for like the magic of the creative storytelling of Gato to like rehab Umino and like have these two guys. And you know what? There was something similar to this that happened in the recent past. Dangerous Techers, but that was like an organic thing, like that those two guys gelled together, found the magic key to like work together and like create something out of it when nothing was being done with either of them. This does not scream to me Dangerous Techer situation. It screams like we still don't know what the fuck to do with Shoto. He still doesn't have a character. And ELP, is like, let's put these fucking glasses on him. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, they gave him a pair of light up glasses in the intro. Him, ELP, and Jado all had the glasses. And yeah, I don't get what they're doing with Umino. I don't think they know what they're doing with Umino. It does feel like kind of a holding pattern. Like, yeah, we're trying stuff. It's not working. Let's just sticking with ELP for right now.
And here's the thing. ELP seems like he's on, babysitting duty for the time being, which is whatever. But this is a guy too who it's been long overdue for them to actually try and do something and go with. And it's just never seemed to, the timing hasn't seemed to work out. And that's fine, whatever. But then on the flip side, you got Zach, who like picks up the win here. And as soon as he like picked up the win, you were like, we're going with Zach again? Like, and it makes all the sense in the world from the sense of like, they did the fucking non-finish in the US between him and Goto. So I guess it was always kind of a quasi possibility they might go with him again. But I kind of just assumed that we would be getting the next iteration of that story in the G1 like traditional booking. But he picks up the win here and you're like, oh God, like if you've been paying attention to Gato's booking at all, like as soon as he won here, I was like, oh, he's being kept strong. Goto's retaining. He's challenging Goto before G1. Like as soon as that happened, I knew that's exactly where we were going before the, 3 matches into the card. I don't know if I love the idea of having that sort of tell in the sense of like, sometimes obvious booking can be some of the best booking when it's the right thing for business, but this didn't feel like the right thing for business. Like, why are we doing Zach and Goto again? Why is Zach being kept strong so he can lose again? Like, this feels like a no-win situation for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Including the fans.
Yeah, and that Zach Goto match is going to be on the Tanahashi Jam, which is a untelevised, Japanese-only event. Actually, it's televised, but it's not going to be on New Japan World. It's only going to be on
Samurai TV?
TV Asahi. So we're not going to be able to see it probably till who knows when they finally put up on World.
They'll make it available. There's no way they're going to have an IWGP World Title match non-available, even if it's on tape delay. Like we're going to see it.
Yeah, but how long is that delay going to take for it to go up?
Hopefully not too long, but you never know. I mean, how long did it take for them to fix the English website? That wasn't so bad, right?
Yeah, like a year or so,
Medium.com.
Never forget. Oh man. So yeah, I wasn't initially thinking that Zach was going to get a title match immediately because they normally don't do a world title match before G1. So I was thinking, maybe Taichi and Ishii are going to win. And then you're going to get, Zach and Taichi on opposite sides, Zach and Oiwa challenging Taichi and Ishii at some point.
You're probably right. That was also a way they could have gone. I think for me, it's always different when you're not actively engaged and you're trying to piece things together. So for me, it was like coming off of, we watched the US shows and a couple, and then I jumped back in and I'm like, I'm still in that mindset of like following what happened there. And I'm like, oh, they're just going to, Zach wins, then that means that they're trying to keep him strong for a rematch with Goto. Like that's the way I'm thinking about it. And that's exactly what happened, which I don't love that necessarily.
Yeah. So we had Zach pinning Umino here again. So that kind of seems to be a thread for Umino this year and failing to beat Zack Sabre Jr. So yeah, Zach used a wacky roll up, got the pinfall on him, and left Umino frustrated once again by being pinned in the match by Zach. So that was that. Following that, we had a final road match for the Ace Hiroshi Tanahashi, a connection match where he defeats the Heat Storm Yuya Uemura in 9 minutes and 30 seconds. And Yuya was a guy that Tanahashi kind of spotlighted and said that, he's a guy that could be the future. He could lead Hantai, and there seemed to be a lot of connection there being built up between Yuya and Tanahashi, and then Yuya challenging Tanahashi to this matchup here, and Tanahashi pulling the surprise roll up here, shifting the momentum off of Uemura's armbar to get the leverage and get the kind of surprising win over Yuya here.
Yeah, I've got conflicting feelings about the outcome of this match because it is twofold. Like, on the one hand, you do have to wonder, do you want Tanahashi in his final year with this like epic tour of him having all these singles matches to just job to anybody with a pulse all year long? And maybe that is what you want. I don't know. Like, it depends on what story you're trying to tell and what message you're trying to get across on the screen. At the same time, if everybody beats Tanahashi, nobody's win over Tanahashi really means much in the long run of things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But do you want a young guy like Yuya Uemura, who is admittedly like very talented, but still, we've talked about it, like since coming back from injury, still trying to find himself, finding his place in New Japan and marking out a niche for himself? Do you want him slipping on a banana peel and getting rolled up at the last second, right when he's about to have Tanahashi, like where it's like, oh, the old crafty veteran, pulled a fast one on the young, the young lion, for lack of a better term, it's experience versus youth. Like, that's the story that they told here.
Yeah.
But like, what is, and granted, what the outcome of this is Tanahashi is therefore then turning around and challenging for the second most prestigious title in the company, even though he failed at, challenging for the Never title, and he's failed for the TV title, and he's failed. He failed at the
world
title this year. Like, he's failed a lot this year. I don't know if just getting this one banana peel win over Uemura was worth it or necessary to get him to this title match with, the global champion. I'm conflicted on it, because on the one hand, I do see it's like it is a little bit devaluing if just everybody beats him. It doesn't really mean much. But what is the real message here? What are we trying to do with Tanahashi's tour? Like, what is the, I don't get it. And I'm like, ultimately for me, my feeling is this is a company desperately in need of like pushing their young guys. Yuya Uemura probably should just beat him.
Yeah, and that was kind of my initial thought, like, after the roll-up happened. Like, initially I was actually, a little bit happy. It's Tanahashi, he's the ace. It's always good to see Tanahashi get a win. But then afterwards, I was like, yeah, I don't know if beating Yuya is the right call here. Like, all these other young guys are beating him. And, again, yeah, we need to get a young guy hot. So why are we beating Yuya here? But then, again, you kind of see what comes next. He's challenging Gabe Kidd for the global title at New Japan Soul Tour. And also, him and Yuya also are in the same block for G1 Climax. So it's like, all right, I guess that kind of makes sense. You're going to have Yuya come back and, beat him in his final G1 and, get the win back there and kind of have this shining moment in the tournament. So I guess that is kind of helpful. Like, it seems like it's going to come around. But initially, it did kind of seem weird that we're beating a young guy that we need to get over.
Yeah, I don't know. And it would be one thing if it was just this one kind of, because this was far from the most egregious thing on the show, but it's like following the other stuff that had already happened earlier on the card, back to back to back. It's like questionable decision after questionable decision. It started to kind of pile on. We're like, I reached out to Samson because I know he watches a lot of this shit like live, and I messaged him. I'm like, I'm like halfway through this show and I don't know what the fuck is going on. I was like, is this just me? Am I just in a bad mood? Like, am I out of touch? And he's like, nah, bro.
Yeah,
it's not just you.
I felt like, Yuya winning was an easy layup. Everybody kind of had that circle. Yeah, it'll be a fun match, and Yuya will pin him with the frog splash and, kind of fully take over that, mantle from him or whatever. But yeah, that roll up is just kind of like, okay. And he's going to get the win back in G1, but I don't know. It, like you mentioned, I think in a vacuum, it probably would have been fine, but then you had all this other stuff surrounding it. It's just like, what direction? Like, we are in an aceless company right now. And I know Goto is the world champion and he's doing his thing and he's drawing, but where is the ace? Where is the next young hot star that we're getting behind that's going to carry the company forward? Like, Goto is not the solve. Like, he's a temporary solution that's working out very well, but he's up there. He's going to get older. Like, we have all these young guys. Like, who is the next ace? We're in aceless territory right now.
Yeah, and it's been a long time since New Japan was in a situation like this. Like, really, it's probably not since a post Kensuke Sasaki New Japan in the early to mid 2000s where you had this kind of quasi, who is the actual ace of the company? Is it Tenzan? Is it Nagata? Is it Nakamura? Is it, Takayama and different people like that? Like, is it Fujita? It got really weird there for a while until like it became clearly apparent that it's like Tanahashi's the ace, Okada is the ace, and now we're again, and for the vast majority of this company's life, it was not like that. Like, you knew who the fucking ace was at all. It's like there's a through line: Inoki, Fujinami, the Musketeers, but more realistically, it's like Hashimoto, then Muto, then Kensuke Sasaki, and after. Once Inokiism pops up, it gets weird. Where it's like, is it Nagata or is it Tenzan? Or is it, which one of these guys is it? It's hard to tell.
Yeah. So, I don't know what's going on, but Tanahashi gets the win here, moving on to a global title match. And then speaking of questionable decisions, we had next the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team title match. We have the team of Sho and Doki. Yes, Doki joining the House of Torture to defeat Master Wato and Yo in 10 minutes and 52 seconds to become the new Junior Tag Team Champions.
I think there's a lot of mixed reactions to what happened here. And there's some people, it depends on, I think, your mileage on where you stand in terms of like Doki, House of Torture, and everything like that. But for me personally, I feel like this was one of the worst creative decisions that took place on the show for just the simple reason that I thought that there was legitimate money to be made with a Doki return. Mm-hmm. It didn't have to be the grand return, challenging. I know a lot of people were hoping that he would come back, be pushed to the moon, and challenge Desperado in a high stakes mega match. I know that that's what a lot of people hope for, and and who knows, maybe we'll still get there. To me, it didn't even have to be that particular way. It could have been as a heel. It could have been in any number of ways. But for me, the one thing that was a necessity for Doki's return to matter is that he was booked as the ace of the junior division for the better part of last year, headlining the Dome. His return should have been befitting of a top junior star. They brought him back like a geek.
Yeah.
They brought him back like just like the second fiddle guy who carries a fucking, bent lead pipe in House of Torture, wearing a House of Torture shirt. No character, no gimmick, like nothing, like, especially on the same night that Fale joins, on the same night that Chase Owens defects, and, not really opposite of any top stars within the division. Like, it's Wato and fucking Yo. and he's not cutting a promo. There's nothing new. There's no reason for this to even have happened other than it's like, yeah, he used to team with Kanemaru, and like they were just 4 guys. And even that's weird. It's like
Kanemaru turned on him.
Yeah, Kanemaru turned on him. Like, why is he just boys with him again? Like, that doesn't even make sense to me. The one positive coming out of this, I can't wait for the Just 3 Guys merch to fucking drop. That's gonna be fire. But other than that,
yeah, bro, I was baffled. Like, you know, they did the whole thing. Kanemaru, he comes out in a sling and he's like, yeah, I'm hurt. And it shows like I don't have a new partner. And I'm like, okay, like, are we gonna get like somebody new debuting? Like it's Ninja Mac or somebody, like it's somebody that was in a tournament gonna fill in here. And then they started playing the music and I was like, that music sounds familiar. Like, who is that? And then this man Doki walks out. I'm like, no, you got to be kidding me. And the crowd pops. They're cheering like, oh, Doki's back. And it's like an initial like pop, and then like a sudden realization of like, oh, he's in House of Torture now. He's taking the crack.
So my wife was watching this with me, right? She wasn't watching the rest of the show. She you know, have you ever had the thing where like when you're growing up and you're watching a show and it's like borderline, but like it's not really that bad, but then a sex scene pops up and your parents always fucking walk in at the worst. Yeah. So it's like, I'm watching the show, nothing really bad happens, and then this happens, and my wife walks out and she's like, Doki, that guy's in House of Torture? Don't you fucking hate them? Like, makes sense. He's just the guy that carries the pipe anyways. Like, because it's not like she was watching it like, you know, regularly like in the past. And she's like, I remember him. He's just the guy with the pipe. But bro, I was so bewildered and baffled by this that I was a little bit in denial that it was even actually Doki.
Bro, I was waiting for like the double turn the other way. Like I'm House of Torture, but then he was gonna like become a good guy and help Watto and Yo win.
Bro, I was waiting for the double turn. He comes out and he's the fake Doki. And I thought the real Doki was going to come out. Because I'm watching and I'm looking at his face and I'm like, is that Doki? Like, I can't tell if that. And I'm like, I'm not sure that that's him. And like, I'm trying to like reason to myself about the reality of what's happening here. She's like, no, that's him. Look at his hair. And I was like, I don't think that's him. She's like, it's the same makeup I remember.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And I was like, I don't think that might not be him.
Yeah, bro. I was just baffled. They threw money away on a babyface turn. Like the crowd, from the initial reaction, they wanted to cheer this guy. They wanted to get behind him. Everybody knows the story of him getting hurt in Tokyo Dome. Like, that was easy money. Like you said, he didn't have to come back and initially challenge for a title, but you could build this whole story of the goal to get back to the Dome, to win the belt again, to beat Desperado, and get the crowd behind him. You could have built a babyface of this division, a division where you have guys like Hiromu and Desperado who have been there forever now and should be competing in the heavyweight division. You could create a new star, a new draw in that division, so you don't just have to rely on Hiromu and Desperado. But no, for whatever reason, they decided to, burn money, throw that away, and just stick Doki. It feels like a regression. It feels like he's gone back to like initial Suzuki-gun days where, yeah, he was just the guy with the pipe, and then we joke about, he kind of looks like a Ninja Turtle, like C-class villain. Well, now he's like going to be booked like that.
Patrol.
Yeah, he's going to be booked like that now, being in House of Torture.
And see, I don't disagree with you that it could have been beneficial to do that storyline that you're pitching. For me, that didn't even really matter. He could have come back in any capacity. It just needed to be a star capacity. Mm-hmm. Presented. Here's the one thing. You say it's a regression, and it probably is. That is my one fear. What if they know something that we don't know? Maybe the injury was severely immobilizing and diminutive, like it actually hurt him to the point where it's like, maybe they're not pushing him because the work won't be of the same caliber and he can't be Doki anymore. And he does need to take a step back and fulfill this kind of role because they know that if they pushed him in the top spot, he's not able to work at the same level at the top of the junior card like he was before. That is a real possibility. Now, if we turn around And next week, or, you know, whenever it is, we see this man wrestling like he's not fucking going back. And he, but you know what? He's not going to do that. House of Torture is where guys go to die. Like something happened. I don't know. Maybe it's the injury. But it sucks.
Yeah. We had lots of questions here. Les Commission 7252 says, Jeremy and Josh, are you okay with me as of now to no longer be a fan of Doki and now get behind Yo and cherish him as our new Doki?
Well, don't say arg, because that's on you, bro. I don't speak for you. You don't speak for me. We live separate lives, my guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's fine. You can do what you want to do. We live in America for now. It's a free country for now.
I'm not getting behind Doki. I'm not getting behind Yo either. Few Shoulder 2780.
I don't get behind too many wrestlers, honestly.
Few Shoulder 2780 says, what's your opinion on the new House of Torture? Personally, I feel like the amount of Pin Eater outweighs the amount of stars they have.
I don't know of any stars that the House of Torture has. What stars do they have? This is a group full of Pin Eaters.
Yeah, like they are now collectively one of the collection of worst wrestlers in a faction ever.
Who's the star in that group?
I guess people will say Evil.
You mean Naito's Pin Eater?
Yeah.
Who else?
Some might still try to argue for Sonata.
Oh, you mean Naito's Pin Eater? I don't know. That's it. Those are the only two guys you can like really point to. Who else?
Yeah, I don't think there's any argument for anybody else.
Yujiro? You mean Naito's Pin Eater?
I know maybe there's a big show guy out there that want to argue for show. Maybe Rich wants to argue for. No, actually, Rich is a Yo guy. Maybe somebody will want to argue for show.
If you ask Rich, he's going to be like, "You mean Yo's Pin Eater?"
Yeah. Yeah. Next question here from Tony Farrakhan. Why are they keeping the House of Torture as such a small faction? Who else do you feel needs to join?
You know, honestly, what's happening right now with House of Torture and War Dogs. Now, granted, I can't fully say that I know exactly where the trajectory of things are going, but you know, you have a situation. This just reminds me so much of NWO Japan and Team 2000, because like what happened there was Chono was kind of like the de facto leader. He was like the leader when the outsiders aren't around. I don't think Hogan really, bro, that's another crazy thing. WCW had that connection to New Japan for all those years. And with the amount of like times that Hogan came to Japan and worked New Japan and the history there, he never fucking came to Japan while he was in WCW, like ever. That's especially with how big NWO Japan is. That's fucking weird. I've never thought about it until on the air right now. But like, anyways, yeah. So like Chono's the leader of NWO Japan when Kevin Nash is not around, when Scott Hall is not around. And then eventually Muto joins the group. And then there's sort of like this power dynamic. Who's the real leader of NWO Japan? Chono leaves, forms Team 2000. They rift. Sound familiar? Who's the real leader? They rift. And at first it seems like Muto's team, they're changing things up. They're going to revamp, you know, NWO Japan. But ultimately what ends up happening is it becomes a battle of personalities. Chono versus Muto. Muto loses. Chono and Team 2000 just kind of, you know, persist and destroy what was NWO Japan. And Team 2000 absorbs everybody and just goes on. And it feels like that's kind of what's happening right now. It feels like War Dogs are getting kind of mopped. Mm-hmm. I mean, we'll get to it, but like this feels like a rehash of that entire storyline.
Yeah, and that's not going to be great if House of Torture is the one that's just absorbing everything and it's going to be the lasting.
Yeah, people, if you'd asked people in 1999 or 1998, like which of the two brands do you think is more marketable, NWO or Team 2000? You know, anyone with a brain would have said NWO, but like it ran its course and there was nothing else left for them to do. So they had to kind of like revamp it, rebrand it, and find something new for Chono to do. It's kind of what's happening right now with Evil.
Yeah. Tay Casey says, "Will House of Torture outgrow Hantai?" I mean, at this point,
I don't know, but like, you know, the only guy that I still feel like could potentially, maybe, I don't know, maybe the ship is sailing, but at one point it felt like maybe Ren Narita could eventually still have a future and do something. But I think we're swiftly approaching the like moment of no return, and maybe we're already past it when it comes to him. So
yeah, I felt like there was big money in like Show eventually leaving and going back and kind of like reclaiming where he was at. But yeah, I think that ship's long gone, and I feel like, yeah, Narita, like I think once you're there for a while, like it doesn't seem like there's any way out. Like you're pigeonholed, you are stuck in that House of Torture gimmick, and that's your...
You know, people have come into Bullet Club and left and been fine for it and actually better off. It's happened many, many times. I mean, like, look at AEW. You know? but like, look at like Finn Balor, Prince Devitt. Look at Tama Tonga. Look at Cody. Look at, you know,
AJ.
Yeah, AJ Styles. Look at Robbie Eagles. Like, you can point to ELP. There's been a bunch of names of guys who like were in it, left it, we're fine, some were better off, but like nobody has joined House of Torture and left. And if they did, they wouldn't be in a better position. Like nobody ever, not to this point anyways.
Yeah, which is crazy.
They've been around since 2020.
Yeah,
coming up on, remember like when it was like a decade of Bullet Club? We're like at the half decade of House of Torture, and it's a half decade of shit, bro. It sucks.
Yeah,
so
it's horrible. Fauci says, "Is House of Torture a Tanahashi psyop to infiltrate and crash Forbidden Door as revenge for talent poaching?"
I don't think so, but
yeah, we haven't seen Evil on a Forbidden Door yet, so this is TK is not booking none of that.
Yeah, he only books the guys that he wants to steal from the company.
Rainbow and Slam Pig says, "Do you think it is a deliberate strategy to move away from many smaller units and instead have relatively few, much larger units? Or is it just how things are right now until some further development occurs? I can't see the advantage to how the factions are currently set up."
You know, unfortunately, I know that people don't want to hear, I don't know, but we're at a phase of the company where it's unpredictable when it comes to the booking, because I can't look at what Gato's doing and find cohesion in it. And maybe there's a grand plan, and maybe we need to trust in Gato.
Nah.
but it doesn't feel like 6 years ago where everything he did touched to gold and it made sense and it came to fruition. I'm perplexed at what's happening, and I would love the idea that this is just a stopgap until we get to a new golden age where there's, you know, fresh factions that are, you know, running rampant and doing their thing and everyone's bought in. But I don't know, man. It feels like a reset, but not a good reset. Like it's like we've run out of ideas and we're not ready. And, you know, we don't have the creative to get to where we need to be. So we're going to go to Hantai and House of Torture, you know?
Yeah. Yes, a huge, big good versus evil kind of layout. And yeah.
But the evil is so shitty. Like, who wants to watch a show where the villains just all suck so bad?
Yeah. And the really bad thing about this, too, is like now these House of Torture matches, like the run-ins were already bad enough. Like, look how many run-ins we're going to get now in these matches. Like, yo, Dick Togo's gone. Oh, here comes Sho. Oh, here comes Doki. Here comes Fale. Oh, here comes Chase. Here comes Sonata.
Yeah, but when Fale comes in, it's not going to be a run-in. It's going to be a walk-in. He's going to walk his ass down.
Two other guys are going to lap him in his run-in. But yeah, it's just going to be the big clown car of these guys just constantly running out. Everybody with their weapon. You're going to have the wrench, the pipe, the garrote wire.
We're going to get to it, but like, yeah, that's exactly what happened in the dog collar match, where it's like, I was like, how many of these guys got fucking gimmicks? You got
Bro, just wait till
a push-up bar, the bent, the garrote wire, the bent pipe. You got
the wrench.
The wrench.
The pimp
and you
cane.
got the whiskey bottle, the pimp cane. This is too many fucking gimmicks, bro.
Bro, wait till Chase comes out there with the horse.
This man's gonna come out with a boot with spurs and fucking.
That man, he's got the beer bottle.
Well, you know what he'll probably do? He'll probably get a branding iron is what he probably should do. He's probably listening right now. And if you want to send us a couple bucks for inspiring you to steal from Terry Funk, then, have at it. Patreon.com/.
Oh man. Yeah, it's going to be bad. Well, moving on to the next match, we had the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Title match. Taichi and Tomohiro Ishii defeat the United Empire team of Callum Newman and Great Okan to become the new tag team champions. So, we've seen kind of this interesting team of Taichi and Ishii since Hontai brought in just 4 guys in the group, and a lot of history here with both, Ishii and Taichi kind of being, dark saints or kind of these outsiders at one point in time being brought into New Japan and, never really teamed together previously. And now,
well, they did in their first faction.
Yeah. In their first faction. But I mean, I feel like it's been a year since then, and they've kind of been on opposite sides since then. So, that kind of history, bring them back together here. And then, Newman and Okan recently winning the tag titles, after Cobb vacated and they defeated Bishamon to win the titles.
When was that outsider group? Was that 19 years ago? Like 2006? I think that's about right.
Yeah.
Fuck, that's crazy.
Old
enough to vote. For now. Yeah, man, I don't know. So this was a good match. It was a very good match, and I was excited to see Taichi and Ishii pick up the win here because those are 2 guys that I'm big fans of, and I like them. I did sort of think like, I don't know, on the cusp of like the G1, it was just kind of weird. The fact that you got 3 different dudes in this match vying for the IWGP tag team belts, and one of them is in the G1, and 3 of them are like not qualified, like in play-in rounds. And Ishii is the strong champion. So I kind of felt like that was weird from like a kayfabe perspective. I don't know. Maybe Chris Sampson's got some win-loss stats to kind of back up the kayfabe of it all. I don't know. But the match itself was good, but it also felt like, I know New Japan's not like a tag team territory, but we just got these belts on Okan and Callum Newman, and it was like the big push for Callum Newman to like get this run, and the run kind of just never happened. He got the title shot against Goto and looked good, but failed, and now we're dropping the belts like straight away to Ishii and Taichi, and maybe that's a side effect from them not having a lot of like great tag teams built up right now and kind of just trying to figure things out. Probably a lot of that has to do with with Naito leaving the company the way that he did. But yeah, I don't know. From a booking perspective, I see the positive and the negative, because it's like, yeah, I'm happy for Taichi, I'm happy for Ishii, but Ishii does have another belt, and I don't know. I think if I saw like the future of what is on the horizon for a potential Taichi and Ishii run, and I'm like, all right, there's this slew of contenders that make sense for them, and there's a way for us to go, then I might be a little bit more behind it. But it feels like it's at the expense of Callum Newman a little bit, which, again, a running theme. As much as I love those 2 guys, and they're 2 of my favorites in the entire company, and the match was very, very, very good, I don't know if Callum Newman should be losing like that on this big of a card after just recently winning the title. I don't know. That was weird to me.
Yeah, that's another kind of head scratcher there, and I'm with you. I love Taichi and Ishii, and you know what? If you just give them title defenses and Korakuen and push them throughout the half of the year, like they could probably be tag team of the year and be this great, incredible tag team, and that's awesome. But again, it's to the detriment of Callum Newman, and I'm kind of fearful that Callum's not getting into G1 this year. That they put him in a qualifier, they put him against Taichi. And normally you have the tag champions in this thing to set up tag title matches in the fall and winter going into Tokyo Dome. And yeah, they could leave the tag champions out. I feel like at least one of them might get in, but it feels very weird to, Newman was supposed to get this tag title run with Cobb. Cobb leaves, they win it, they get the belts back. He challenges Goto, great main event. And then, no follow-up. Now he's potentially not going to even be in the G1 at all. So that does seem very questionable. But, I mean, from the match is very good. I thought Taichi and Ishii had a lot of great double-team moves. I love the Black Mephisto throw into the Ishii's Brain Buster. Ishii, one of the best save guys in the business, coming in always at the perfect timing to break up the pinfalls. And so, there's a lot of really great back-and-forth action here. And I thought that Taichi and Callum had a lot of heat on the Road 2 stuff, the Super Junior undercards building up to this match. So, it's hard-hitting, good, fun matchup. And, Taichi and Ishii win, so Ishii's a double champion. But, it does kind of leave you like, all right, where does Callum Newman go from here? He has to try and fight into the G1. Why was Okan gifted a spot when I feel like all he's been doing this year is losing? He got rid of KOPW to try and, challenge. And he's just been, I feel, on the losing end of stuff too. So why isn't he forced to qualify? Why are Ishii and Taichi forced to qualify? It's just the whole thing is, there's a lot of questions there.
It's just weird when you in the past, and this was something that Chris was saying on the show last week, and it's true. It's like when in the past you've been able to apply certain levels of logic to the company and then thereby equate that to how the wins and losses affect the booking. Even if it's not a perfect art, there's logic there. That's great. But like when they start to divorce themselves from everything, I'm looking at it right now and it's like, Okan did have some successes this year, but it's like, okay, he beat Shota Umino, then he lost to ELP, and then he lost to Shota Umino. He beat ELP for the TV title, and then he dropped it right back to him. Like, that's his whole year already in singles matches. I don't know. But, at the same time, Callum Newman's had 0 singles wins this year, so maybe that's a part of why, The one thing I will say that is a positive here on a show that was so House of Torture, heels overcome heavy, to have a sort of inspirational underneath underdogs, comeback story when it comes to Ishii and Taichi sort of returning and winning these tag titles. That's a feel good thing. So that's kind of cool. At the same time, it's like Taichi's held these belts quite a few times now with a few different partners, and I don't know. I'm ready for them to go with some of these young guys is the bottom line. Mm-hmm. And to see so many of them, we're going to see one win here, which is great, but to see so many of them lose definitively all throughout the night is weird.
Yeah, it just seems like the direct opposite of what they should be doing. It's like we should be trying to build the future, and we're bringing in, Fale. We're pushing Taichi and Ishii, which again, those guys are awesome. But it's like we should be trying to get Newman and Okan over, and this was their first defense, failed. Like I feel like we could have gotten a little bit of something out of Newman and Okan before them having to drop the titles. So yeah, it seems again a lot of questionable booking decisions on this card. So we had a question here from Few Shoulder 2780. Backstage, Okan said that United Empire will need rebuilding. Who do you think they should recruit? I can see Oleg joining them down the line personally.
They need a leader.
Yeah.
Fuck the idea of recruiting anybody. They need a front man. If they don't have a leader, then there's no reason for the group to exist. So that's first and foremost. We could speculate all day about someone like Oleg, and maybe Oleg could lead them, but I don't know about that. They need a leader. Plain and simple. Like, that's where we're at. And that's the first and most important aspect of this. And if you want to, I don't know, maybe they need to have one of these young domestic guys take over the group, because I know that that's not the roots of what the group was, but it seems like we're taking everything domestic these days. So maybe that's where we should go next.
Yeah. You have a lot of these guys that are in factions that are kind of underneath leaders. You have Oiwa, Umino, a lot of these guys, break them out of that, give them their own faction, and change up the kind of the identity of United Empire. And I get it, they kind of want to still pay tribute to Will and kind of keep it close to the roots, but Will Ospreay's not walking through that door. So we need to change it up and change the identity of it a little bit and give it to somebody, put a fresh coat of paint on it, and make it work make it a vehicle to get a young guy over. So following that, we had the G1 Climax 35 announcement. So A block, we got Hiroki Goto, Bolton Oleg, Yuya Uemura, Yota Tsuji, Dave Finley, Evil, Sonata, Hiroshi Tanahashi, and then 2 more to be announced. Then in the B block, we had El Phantasmo, Shota Umino, Shingo Takagi, Zack Sabre Jr., Great Okan, Gabe Kidd, Narita, Konosuke Takeshita, and then 2 more to be announced. And so those 4 open spots will be determined by play-in matches. So 2 will take place on June 23rd at Korakuen Hall, while the other 2 will happen at the Tokyo Budokan on July 4th. The winners of the matches will determine the last entrance in the tournament. So on Monday, June 23rd, the A block play-in match will be Taichi versus Callum Newman. Then the B block play-in match will be Ishii versus Drilla Maloney. And then on Friday, July 4th, the A block play-in match is Oiwa versus Don Fale, and the B block play-in match is Yoshihashi versus Chase Owens. And we had
do you want to talk about it now, or did we want to get around to this? I wasn't.
Well, we got a bunch of questions. I think the questions will kind of help us talk about it here. So first couple questions here from Emily in the Discord says, with Shota and ELP in the same G1 block, do we still need to be concerned about a shooter heel turn and splitting of the duo, or are we finally in the clear and it's just be friendly competition after Shota wore the LED sunglasses at Dominion? Asking the real questions over here.
I think you might be one of the only people as invested in this particular predicament. We're inquiring minds want to know. We're all on the edge of our seats wanting to I don't know. It is one of those things where I am hoping optimistically that I've seen instances where guys seemed a little lost in the shuffle, and then a Strange Bedfellows tag team kind of helped revitalize them and bring them back to prominence. One situation that is a great example of that is like Team Hell No. Mm-hmm. Bryan Danielson was kind of like lost in the shuffle there. It was like, what the fuck is going on with Bryan Danielson? And then Team Hell No literally was the trajectory to him like getting the superstar run and the yes movement, yada yada yada. So who knows? Maybe I would love to believe that this partnership with ELP could lead to something of a similar ilk, but I just don't believe it's not them. I don't believe in Ghetto.
Yeah.
And I think Emily, you're making a mistake in putting your faith in these people to do this.
Yeah, and I do think Umino is a really good tag team wrestler. I feel like the times where he's been spotlighted in tag teams like World Tag League, him and Narita, and even him and ELP, I feel are starting to gel really well. And I think, things are not working out on the singles. Yeah, put him in a tag team for a little bit. Let him kind of strive in a tag team division and get him over that way instead of forcing him to try and be a single star. Emily also asks, with no Hiromu to be found in the G1 playoffs, what do you think is next for him? And I don't know. And I don't know if this is an office decision or if it's more of a Hiromu decision. I know Hiromu's been saying, he wants the juniors to be main eventers. He wants the juniors to main event the Tokyo Dome. So is this him just wanting to just be a junior forever, or is this a company, again, kind of dropping the ball and not putting him in that position?
We're talking about Hiromu here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It is perplexing. It's mind-boggling. It seemed right there. You know, if there was ever really going to be a time where things aligned perfectly for him to potentially take that step, now was the time. And, you know, looking at if you didn't want to make him part of the initial, how many guys was 16? If you don't want to make him part of the initial 16, you wanted him to earn his way in, you put him in the play-in round. That's fine. But we've already done the thing in the past. Yeah, it was pandemic time, but like they've already had Hiromu in heavyweight tournaments, not the G1, but he was in a New Japan Cup. We've seen him challenge
the world title. Yeah.
Yeah. He's challenged for the world title. He's challenged for the open weight title. He's done everything that there is to do in the junior division. Like, he's firmly cemented himself as a top 4 all-time junior in this company, along with the likes of Liger, Fujinami, and Tiger Mask. And then when you talk about the 4th guy, it's got to be Hiromu. There's nobody else who's on the same level as those 4 guys. His days as the ace of the company are long past. He's filled out his frame. LIJ is done. What more could you? The only way that I could, I mean, and it's unfortunate because we're still doing the fantasy booking thing. And it seemed like this was a low hanging fruit just right there in front of them, easy to kind of go with. But it's like the only way I could potentially see them ever going with Hiromu right now moving forward is if he pulls the Finn Balor Prince Devitt thing where he forms his own faction and, you know, does the open weight, I'm a junior, switching to heavyweight, leading the group sort of thing. But if that doesn't happen like in the next year, like this was the opportune time and they firmly missed it. And are we heading, down the Hiromu path or like what's his name? What? I'm trying to think of, Kushida. Are we heading down the Kushida path where it's like this guy has outgrown the division, but they don't have anything creatively left for him? Or are we going to have to do the Liger thing where it's like, okay, you've won the title a million times. You've won the Super Juniors a million times. We're just going to give you the carte blanche to do whatever the fuck it is that you want to do and go work abroad and come and go as you please. And, you know, just kind of maintain your like emeritus status with the company.
Yeah, and, you know, it could be also what Rambones alludes to this next question. So he says, what's going on for Hiromu? I thought for sure he would be a G1 playing contender. Do you think there's a real possibility that he will eventually get frustrated about his stagnation and leave? And so, I mean, we've already seen the LIJ exodus of Naito and Bushi leaving. Also, I think Naito was more of, you know, the contract and date situation, not so much creative, but again, I don't know what Hiromu really wants. You know, verbally, he keeps mentioning, you know, wanting the juniors to the main event Tokyo Domes and be the headline features on these shows. And so I don't know if that's just what he's always been saying now, or is he open to wanting to be a heavyweight star? And whether he wants to or not, like, if as a booker, I see this guy as a star, we talked about earlier, he has that LIJ juice that could still be squeezed. I'm saying, hey, man, I know you want the juniors to do all this stuff, but we need you as a star in the heavyweight division. We need you in G1. So I don't know if it's him or the company or what the deal is, but maybe if he doesn't get what he wants eventually, maybe he does leave. So,
well, you know, the one thing with all of that is we saw where they started to integrate juniors into the G1 in the 2000s, and it was always an extremely dismal kind of disappointing performances, you know, and point standings where they just didn't do very well. They didn't win very many matches. Liger, every single heavyweight run that Liger ever had was super disappointing. And It didn't matter if it was Black Liger in the early 2000s where he was squashing dudes. Like literally, they sacrificed the whole fucking division in early 2000 so that he could look compelling enough to go up to heavyweight just so he could job out in a few minutes like Kensuke Sasaki and a few other guys. Like, and it didn't, it was like, why did we do this? Why did he just slaughter the division just so that the heavyweights could all slaughter him? And now the juniors are even lower because of it.
Yeah.
Or, in the mid 2000s, he had CTU and they tried, we're going to make him the leader of his own faction. And that was cool, but it didn't lead to anything. There were so many times they could have gone with Liger and done something and they fucking failed at it. And history's repeating itself. The only time they've ever really tried it and it worked was Devitt. And you would wonder, like, why haven't they tried that again? They could, but they haven't. And I don't know why.
Yeah. I mean, you have two handmade stars in Hiromu and El Desperado, two guys that could step up and be leaders of factions and have units being built around them. But yeah, they refuse to do that. I think Francesco Akira is starting to really develop. He's another guy that I could see maybe building an empire around him. And so yeah, there's guys that they could try it with, but for whatever reason, they're kind of sticking to their tradition and going with the heavyweight guys and not going with Hiromu, a genuine star. Like, they are throwing money away by not using him in G1.
I think that not using Desperado as well as Hiromu is detrimental to the company as a whole when it comes to the G1, because you've got two guys who their frames are not that far off from everybody else's. Their working ability, they're right in the same class as everybody else. And there's clearly fluff in this grouping right now that you could cut right out and exponentially increase the visibility and intrigue of the tournament by just including those two guys, or even just one of them. But the fact that neither of them are in it, but we are going to have, I don't know, like Ren Narita in there or Sonata,
yeah.
Evil.
Yes.
I don't know. It sucks.
Too much House of Torture in this G1. Next question here from Taguchi Main says, is there any Tanahashi G1 matches you're looking forward to, and what will his final point total be?
I'm not, to be honest with you. I don't know. There's nothing that I saw so far, and I haven't even really given too much thought about it. I think back to like what Nagata did in his final G1, and like I wonder, like, is Tanahashi going to be able to do that? And my gut feeling and instinct is no, he's not going to be able to put in a classic, all-time classic performance each and every night in a losing effort to, leave that lasting legacy. And that's okay. It's Tanahashi. He's done enough in his career, but I don't know that I can't tell you that there's realistically, Jeremy, there's not a single match right now in the entirety of New Japan Professional Wrestling, Shinihan, that we either haven't seen or that I am clamoring to see when it comes to Tanahashi, not just for this G1, but in general.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at his block, so yeah, he's an A block, and I mean, he's already faced most of these guys, and yeah, I don't see a super exciting, compelling matchup there. We've seen Goto Tanahashi this year. We've seen him we just saw him against Yuya. We've seen him against Evil recently. Like, I don't think any of these matches, like pre-House of Torture Sonata might be a decent match, but now that's not going to be good. So, yeah, there's nothing really in A block. I really want to see that matchup. And then, yeah, like you said, like he's faced everybody. He's done everything. Plus, his knees are completely shot. Like, we'll get to it. But when he walked out to answer Gabe Kidd's challenge, he looked like he was in pain walking down that ramp.
I honestly feel like he should have been in the play-in rounds. I get why they included him, and that's fine, but it's like I would have preferred that they had like whichever guy it is that's going to get through, and I don't know who it is. I don't know who's going to win these play-in rounds, but let's just say it's Drilla, right? I would have rather them just announce Drilla and have Tanahashi fight Ishii or some shit like that to get into the tournament, you know?
Yeah, considering, he didn't make it in last year, and that could have been a cool story of like, I got to fight my way back in for my last G1. So that could have been a compelling story there. Question from Tay Casey. Is there something I'm missing with the G1 lineup this year, or is it really underwhelming?
I feel underwhelmed by this year's lineup. I drew up my own lineup. I won't go over it, but like, it cut out a lot of the guys that I just don't find to be compelling performers personally, and included some of these guys that are in the play-ins that I feel like have done enough to just deserve to be in. Included the juniors, and for shits and giggles, I threw an AEW star in there, and I was like, which AEW star could they just doesn't need to be around, would make an impact, would be so fun to see in this environment, would like, and could eat losses, and Tony Khan would be fine with all of it. And I was like, let's just put fucking Samoa Joe in this shit, like that's a guy that like it's super low stakes, but he would have a huge impact, and he's just never worked for this company, and he has a huge resume in Japan. Like that's the kind of shit that I would like to see.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And we did hear about an AEW name that was a potential or was lobbying to get into G1, and had that happen, like
there were several, Jeremy. There were several names, and I will tell you that the level of the talents that wanted to perform and be included,
super up there.
They like eclipsed, I would say 95% of the stars that, the quote unquote stars that were included for whatever reason. So yeah.
But gotta make room for Don Fale to potentially get in this thing,
Super important.
Wukong 901 says they just announced the lineup for the play-in matches. Who would you guys want to get in? Which match has your attention the most?
I don't really love the idea that the play-in rounds is simply just 4 standby elimination matches. I liked that there was a mini tournament last year. Mm-hmm. But that's okay. But they haven't explained the logic of how they came to be that these were the 4 individuals selected and why they were not included versus other people that were, automatically grandfathered in. So I feel like it's fucking weird. And when I try to book out like who will get in and who should get in, it's mostly negative, honestly. Like, the best case scenario is both Chase Owens and Fale don't get in, but then you still find yourself in that situation where it's like, why the fuck is Ishii and Drilla going head to head and one of them not going to be in it?
Yeah.
And you kind of hope that the young guy Drilla is the one that gets in, but then it's like, if Ishii can't do a G1, why the fuck is he a dual champion, singles and tag team champion?
Josh, it's summertime. It's time for Ishii's summer vacation. That man likes hanging around Willow.
So I'm like, what's the other A block match?
Oiwa and Don Fale.
Okay, I'm sorry. So
Taichi and Newman.
Yeah, and then Taichi and Newman is like, all right, so again, we're going to see a situation where hypothetically, if the young guy gets through, then the tag champions just are not included in general. Or if Taichi gets through, then someone who challenged for the world title within the calendar year is not good enough to be in the tournament. Like, it doesn't fucking make sense. I can make it so simple for you. Like, I know that not everybody, like, Oiwa should just be in it.
Yeah.
Ishii should just be in it. Given like the credentials. And then you have to kind of take your pick. Like, you should probably just put in Drilla.
Mm-hmm.
And I know everyone loves Yoshihashi and loves Taichi, but you should probably just pick between one of those 2 guys and put them in. It's honestly, it should probably just be
Taichi
since he's a champion. And then, unfortunately, the guys that don't get in would be who? That'd be
Fale, Chase, Yoshihashi. Yeah, and that'd be it. If we did it the way.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't love the lineup of this, and I don't feel like it's as compelling for I thought that the Seoul Tour last year was so compelling because it was like we have a tournament with all of these dudes with these, it's like we're getting another a mini New Japan Cup in the middle of the year to get qualifiers for the tournament. And it's like you could be doing mini tournaments to get the 4. Like the fact that you have 4 slots opens things up even more. It's less limiting. You could just do, how they had the 4 brackets.
Yeah.
Instead of a finals, just the winners of those brackets just go to the G1. That's perfect, but we're not getting that. So the Seoul Tour has less juice. The guys that get into the G1 have less that they've actually done to earn the spot to endear them to the audience and the fans at home. They basically just won one play-in match. It's less meaningful. I don't know. I don't love it. And then, that one of those House of Torture guys is probably getting through. So it's either we're probably getting Chase Owens or Fale in the fucking tournament.
Yeah. Out of all of them, I think Drilla and Ishii will probably be, I guess Drilla and Ishii and Taichi and Newman will probably be like the 2 best matches out of this thing. I think Drilla's going to beat Ishii just to get the win back. They've been trading wins this year. So I think Drilla will get the win back, and Ishii will have his summer vacay in AEW. I could see them, because Taichi's made a big deal about wanting to get in G1 this year. I could see them upsetting Newman and having Taichi go through. But like you said, that's dumb that a world title contender is not going to get in. And I think Oi was going to get in, but I can see Chase, the whole new Lone Star Cowboy gimmick, beating Yoshihashi and getting in.
And I hate to say it, but I don't see anybody in this play-in that I think really, at the end of the day, what we're hoping for is like guys' careers to be forwarded and, for them to up the overall quality of the tournament. But there's nobody that's like meaningful that's going to get through that like has oomph to like really being a player in the G1. It's like these are the standby forgotten guys that just really won't be much. If anything, they'll probably just play like spoiler. Your best case scenario, and I don't have any actual faith that this would happen, is that Oiwa goes through and just fucking runs amok and goes to the finals, and that's your best case scenario out of all of this.
But Josh, that means they would have to push a young guy.
Right, exactly.
Why would they do that? Oh man.
Didn't Okan make it to the play-in finals at the end?
Yeah, he was one of the 3 last year. Yeah,
that's crazy. How come he didn't get to main event the Dome? They went with Shota. It's weird.
I don't know. Death Triangle 720 says, did either of you have the thought that the company is broke with the lack of interesting talents involved in G1 or in the faction mix-ups?
Yeah, I do. I have very serious concerns about that. Both broke financially
and creatively. Yeah, you're telling me outside of AEW, there's no other freelancer or cool outsider we could have brought into this thing? Come on.
No, it's not even just that, Jeremy. It's the talent that you do have that you have not figured out how to maximize and market and push properly within your own company. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And there's, again, Hiromu, Desperado are guys that should be using this thing.
Not even just them, but even people that are included in the tournament that don't really stand a chance, but should be much further along, given the fact that we're 3 years back into most of these guys' excursion returns. 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is. Should be further along.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah. Then last G1 question here from Reddit user Stay With Gas. Can you see them letting Takeshita win the G1?
Yes, but I don't. Maybe, and he might. I think he's a favorite, but I don't know that that's 100% where we're going. But yes, I could. Yeah,
it's definitely a possibility. I know a lot of people want that to happen. And based off what happened in the next matchup, it's definitely a possibility. So What's up with that? We had the never openweight title match. We had the big win here for Boltin Oleg, defeating Konosuke Takeshita in 13 minutes and 12 seconds.
It felt longer, but in a good way, because it felt very epic. These guys went balls to the wall. This is kind of the big boy type of wrestling that I'm aiming for and hoping for. It's just like two dudes who don't fucking play games and they can knock your head off, basically laying into one another. This had all the airs of like a heavyweight slugfest, and that's kind of what you got here. One thing that I thought was very smart was that they were in the hometown of Takeshita. The crowd was firmly behind Takeshita. Clearly they were going with Oleg Boltin, and so there's a lot going against Oleg Boltin winning on this big stage against this star on this evening. And they kind of had to organize the story in a way to where the crowd would get behind him. And that was a pretty tough task for both guys. And I don't know if you noticed this, Jeremy, but like there was a progression to the near falls. Like first, Oleg Boltin hits him with the kamikaze off the top rope, which like in most cases, that would be like your super finisher where like you're going to beat the guy, and he hits him with that. And they go for the 1-2, and like the crowd doesn't count. They barely react. Like they're at the point where they just don't believe that this guy's going to win. Mm-hmm. And then later he hits another kamikaze, and it's kind of a sloppy one. And me at home, I'm like, I think he beat him. And the crowd doesn't even really respond much to that either. And it's kind of a half-assed kamikaze, which at first I thought it was like, maybe he was blowing up, maybe he got tired. But I realized later that this was probably more by design. It was probably closer to like the running Destino. He didn't get all of it sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then from there, he keeps trying to get the kamikaze, and Takeshita keeps getting out of it. So now he's already taken two variants of it, and now they're building up that he's trying to get it. And then he hits him with one. And this time the crowd, 1, 2, he kicks out. Now they're like built, suddenly they're starting to get invested. Like this was all by design. And then at the very, very end, he catches that knee, pops him up, hits him with it in one of the most dynamic and exciting ways that you could possibly do all this. And when he gets that 1, 2, 3, the entire arena is 1, 2. And it's like they built it in a way where if they had done it any other way, the crowd probably would not have reacted this way to this guy on this evening with this particular set of circumstances. But they designed it in such a credible and thoughtful way that they were able to get the crowd on Oleg's side into Takeshita's hometown, defending a title that they were, marketing him as being unbeatable.
Yeah, I think Takeshita has a great job when he goes in there with Boltin Oleg. We had the G1 match last year where Boltin won, and then the never title match in Osaka earlier this year, A New Beginning, and now this matchup. In all three matches, I feel like Takeshita does a really great job of laying out the match. And I don't know, maybe somebody else is laying it out for him, but whenever he's in there with Boltin, it's always laid out really, really well. And yeah, I noticed that, and I also love some of the other stuff that Oleg did throughout the match. There was the Boltin shake on the ramp with the gut wrenches.
Oh, that was sick. Yeah,
that was awesome. He did the verdict, the F5 over the rope. He F5'd them outside of the ring.
Yeah, and if you notice, he did that in response to what Takeshita had done, or Takeshita deadlifted him into a suplex and then tossed him into the ring. Mm-hmm. So then he gave him the F5 to the outside in response to what he had done to him from the apron earlier.
Yeah. And Takeshita, he had a great transition from the Blue Thunder into the Boston Crab, and trying to treat him like a young lion, trying to get him to submit with the Boston Crab.
Yeah.
And then towards the end here, just like you mentioned, Konosuke hits the big dragon suplex and getting ready to hit the knee, and then Boltin just catches him with that kamikaze and pins him, and it was such a great kind of out of nowhere finish. And it was kind of similar to the G1 finish where he just kind of caught him and hit him with it and beat him. So really cool stuff there. And one young guy here getting the win. And so again, the importance is going to be the follow up. What's this never title run going to look like? And hopefully There will be some defenses. There will be he's going to defend against Nagata at the Tanahashi Jam. That's will be broadcasted hopefully later. But yeah, hopefully this will be a good start for Boltin.
I love the idea of seeing a Nagata Oleg Boltin never title match. Like, that fucking rules.
Yeah.
I loved the call that Chris Charlton had on commentary where he's like, this humble man from Kazakhstan doesn't seek fame, doesn't want to be famous. Nevertheless, he will be regardless.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's sick. Like, yeah, because this, it reminds me of like Fedor Emelianenko was kind of similar way when he was, champion in Pride. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to push a young guy, Old Bolton's kind of the right guy to go with.
Yeah.
Like, big beefy boy. Like he has every air of credibility to him, it's a cosmetic business, Was Bill Goldberg the greatest wrestler of all time? No, but did he fucking rule harder than anybody else ever in his era? Yes.
Yeah. And Boltin, he can wrestle.
He can wrestle. I'm not even like taking away from him, but like, can he do the things necessarily that like, can he go out there and give the kind of performances like we're going to talk about him in a second, like that Gabe Kidd or Suji can do right now? Probably not, but like I'm kind of more invested in Oleg Boltin than both of those guys personally. And I've got more stock in him. I think all of those guys have the credibility and trajectory to be world champions, but like, if I had to take the gamble and say which of these guys, it's going to be Oleg Boltin for sure. The rest of them, maybe, probably. He's the guy that I know is going to hold the strap and be a major player in the company. Unless he gets signed away or, if he loses interest in wrestling, something like that has to happen,
Yeah, yeah. And like we were saying last week, I feel like he's the one guy that's kind of been slow and steady. Like people are worried about like Suji and Oiwa and Umino and they're trying to hotch out those guys or not doing anything with them. And then here comes Boltin, just slow and steady, doing his thing, never 6-man stuff.
You know why? Because he's always fucking awesome.
Yeah.
You know how you get over in this business? Just be fucking awesome. Never stop being fucking awesome. And then you'll just be the best. And that's what he does every time out.
Yeah. Yeah. He's gotten over. So yeah, good stuff here from Boltin. We had a question from Doc. He says, Boltin actually seems to be solidified in his role as the new Nakanishi. His improvement over the last year cannot be.
He's so much better than Manabu Nakanishi ever was. Oh my God.
He says his improvement over the last year cannot be ignored, and dude seems poised to be a solid upper mid card. Do you guys think he will last?
His trajectory is so much higher than Manabu Nakanishi. It's not even funny. Don't get me wrong. Nakanishi was a really impressive, powerful big man in his time. And there were a lot of people who wondered why they didn't go further and deeper with him at certain periods. And he was kind of the trusted hand whenever they'd bring in like a new top star. He was like the big muscle guy that could go with other muscular guys that couldn't wrestle. So they'd give him like Brock Lesnar. Or they not that Brock can't wrestle, but they'd give him Brock Lesnar. They'd give him Bob Sapp. They give him Giant Silva, Giant Singh, which is Great Khali. They'd give him guys like that, see what he could do with them. But I don't think that's what we've got. I think Doc's way off base if that's what he thinks, that this is going to be a solid upper mid Carter guy. Like this is going to be world champion. Yeah. He's going to get a run with the big fucking belt. And you know what? This is probably the most, and I was thinking this when they put that never title around his waist. I was like, this company hasn't had a real credible major heavyweight foreigner of this ilk since Scott Norton.
Yeah.
And this is no slight against Jay White, Kenny Omega, or Will Ospreay, but like, look at those guys and then look at Oleg Boltin. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not quite the same thing,
Right. It's totally different style of wrestler. And also, they're kind of all feel like kind of similar in that grouping. But yeah, Boltin is that.
These guys are great light heavyweights, great cruiserweights, but we got a real heavyweight foreigner ready, with the white skin ready to go.
But yeah, you think Scott Norton, you think of Vader. Yeah. Stan Hansen, these kind of big bruiser bolding guys. And it's like, yeah, like we need more of these guys. We need some more dumb jock, big guys like this that have the muscles and just want to throw dudes around.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. So now we move on to the dog collar death match. We had Evil along with Chase, Dick Togo, Don Fale, Doki, Narita, Sanada, Sho, Kanemaru, and Udero, defeating Dave Finlay, who's with Clark, Drilla, Gato, and Taiji Shimori, by TKO in 23 minutes and 5 seconds.
I listened to the show I've listened to every week that you guys have done the show. And, you know, I don't always find myself like, you know, I'd like to be on the show. I'd like to, you know, interject, whatever, but it's not like, you know, it's not like I need to say whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I heard you last week where you're like, yeah, there's never really been any bad dog collar matches. There's probably be okay. And I was like, you're so fucking wrong, Jeremy. This is going to be awful. Oh, to answer, there was one thing too last week where Chris was like, why is it called death match? And I can answer that. Every gimmick match in Puroresu history historically was a death match. So it was like a steel fence death match, a, you know, strap death match. Like, I don't know. It's just one of those weird colloquialisms where like because it like came over from like America, like any sort of gimmick match, you know, every steel cage match back in the day was a death match because it's like anything that wasn't within the confines of traditional wrestling was considered death match, you know?
Yeah.
So, and it's just kind of carried over, you know, all those Isuka chain matches were death matches. All the strap matches that Suzuki had, those were death matches. It's same thing here. So, but you know, I thought the work for the early part of the match was pretty good, actually. Have I seen better work within dog collar matches? Yeah, I thought that the chain they used was like egregiously large. I was like, fuck, that thing is like thing's meaty as shit.
Yeah.
Like if they really like lay in with that thing, it's gonna hurt. Like it's gonna be welts and stuff. But I thought that they did some cool kind of creative stuff. You know, there was definitely some criticisms to be had where I was like, this could be a little bit more violent. This could be playing in a little bit more to the character elements, what we've seen between these guys over, you know, the course of this feud. But by and large, I didn't think that the work was egregious until the ref bump. And then the ref bump led to all of the house torture and war dog shit. And it just broke down. And I don't even feel like giving the play-by-play, but it just broke down into total bedlam. But it wasn't good bedlam. It was the kind where it's like, this is so Vince Russo overbooked bullshit that just takes so far away from like any interest or excitement or investment I had into what this feud was supposed to be. And then ultimately, you know, ended with the stretcher job of Finlay, where I'm like, fuck, like is Finlay done? Like, and you know what? It feels like it's not ending. I think we're leading.
We're just getting started.
We're going to a Tokyo Dome match between Finlay and Evil. Like that's where this is all really realistically heading in the grand scheme of things. So, you know, just buckle in because this is, you know, it's like what did Triple H and Paul Heyman say? Is what was the act one, or this is the second act?
Yeah.
It's just second act of the play. Like we got plenty of acts ready to go.
They are in the same G1 block.
That's fine. I mean, they were in the same quadrant of New Japan Cup, and that shit sucked too.
Yeah.
We've gotten to the point where we've jumped the shark. There's very little redeeming value in this feud. I don't enjoy it. The only thing I thought was really cool about this match, like really, really cool, I did think that the Scorpion Deathlock with the chain choking out Finlay
that was cool.
That's a great finish. But I don't know, man. The idea of the match was cool. I don't need to see 20 members of House of Torture beat up 5 members of War Dogs. And we're going to get to it in a second, but I'm like, why the fuck I don't know. The shit with Gabe Kidd is fucking weird. This whole shit is weird. I don't know, man.
Yeah. And I agree with you. And like, the beginning part of the match, I was like, all right, maybe they're actually going to do something here. They were, working around the chain, doing some cool spots there. And, there was some blood earlier on, but then, they started getting involved slowly. And like, first of all, like, there's no rules. So if you want to get involved, why don't they just jump them from the very get-go then? And instead of waiting for the ref to go out, like the ref's not going to there's no disqualifications. Yeah, but then they had to do the ref bump anyway, and then like you mentioned, yeah, everybody's running in the clown car of them just hitting all the gimmicks, the wrench, the garrote, the pipe, all that stuff, and Fale puts Finlay through a table, which that looked crazy. That's the first time I've really seen a Japanese table just splinter away in pieces.
that you're right, but when Evil threw that fucking table at him before that, I was like, fuck, he threw that so hard. And considering like what happened to Hinare in the dog collar or in the dog pound cage match last year, I was like, do we want to be throwing Japanese strong style?
Yeah, that's a
tables at people's heads.
Like as soon as he did that, I was like, oh, hopefully his head ain't split.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Yeah, so yeah, his Fale puts him through the table, and then he has the darkness scorpion, like you mentioned, pulling on the chain, and Finlay passes out, so the ref calls for the match, and then you had House of Torture beating down the remainder of War Dog and celebrating strong over these guys. So yeah, it's not ending. They're in the same G1 block. It'll probably also, like you mentioned, go to a Tokyo Dome match. There will probably be multi-mans on the Seoul tour. Like this thing's gonna go forever. It's just starting, and I hate it. Mm-hmm. We had a question from Fauci. He says, what are the odds that Evil wins a singles title before Wrestle Kingdom?
I don't know. What do you think?
I could see it happening. It seems like there's this whole renewed push with House of Torture. Let's see, are there any champions in his block? So he's in the block of Goto. He's in the block of Bolton. Yeah, so he's got right now 2 champions in the block. So Evil can beat anybody at any time. So they could easily set up a never title match or a world title match of him in the fall.
I can see it.
Yeah. And Def Triangle 720 says, are you guys preparing yourselves to when Evil challenges Goto after the G1?
Yeah, but he's not going to win.
Yeah, no way.
I mean, how many times has that dude challenged in November or October, just before, World Tag League, just to come up short? Like, he's kind of slotted into that.
Yeah. That's
sort of his destiny. And like, I'd be so shocked if this company went, not that almost anything they do at this point isn't going to shock me, but I'd be so shocked if Evil got another title run.
That'd be insane. Yeah.
I'm surprised that we don't have him in Elegante G-string drag as like the third string dude in someone else's faction at this point.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Let's move on to the next match. We have the IWGP Global Heavyweight Title match, and we have a new champion. War Ready Gabe Kidd defeats Yota Tsuji in 23 minutes and 25 seconds.
I'm a little torn, realistically. The work in the match, they did cool shit. They definitely did cool shit. And the video package was really good, but you could kind of tell, maybe people think I'm reading too much into this, but you could kind of tell a little bit that the rose was off the bloom, kind of for both guys, because there wasn't the reaction from the audience to both of these individuals that there was earlier this year when they faced off at New Beginning. Different crowd, different time, different circumstance, but this could be a byproduct of New Japan not, jumping when the iron is hot, and firing on all cylinders earlier in the year. It also could be a byproduct of what's gone on with Gabe Kidd and AEW and the War Dogs and everything like that, as well as kind of be slow rolling and not necessarily carrying out the greatest global title run when it comes to Tsuji. I don't know. Maybe the Osaka crowd just wasn't bought into this particular feud. But I feel like the biggest detriment to the match itself was the structure. I think that Gabe Kidd and Tsuji knew that Shingo and Goto were going to go out there and give you classic main event style Hoss action, you know, the house style that New Japan is famous for, and wanted to do something a little divergent because, you know, you notice right away, like we started with Gabe diving, we started with Tsuji diving. They were going high octane right off the bat. But my feeling with the match was like, it felt, the work was good. It just didn't make sense to me personally because there wasn't a clear, concise narrative throughout the match. Like everything was happening, but it's not about what you do. I know a lot of wrestling fans think like the cool moves are what matter. And don't get me wrong, I'm a big proponent of cool moves, but it's not what you do. It's when and how and why you do the cool moves. And things were just kind of happening. And guys would just pop up and then they'd hit their, like, this was sort of like, you know, when people like accuse matches of being a little bit of like a spot fest, this kind of felt like that, where it was like, they're doing cool spots, but none of it really leads to anything meaningful. There's not a through narrative. And it felt like everyone was just trying to get as much shit in as they possibly can. Don't get me wrong. The match was still fairly good, but considering what we've seen out of these two guys, especially against one another, I didn't feel like I was watching a classic, and I didn't feel like I was watching the future of the company, the two most over guys, the guys that are making the arguments for themselves to be the ace of the company, the way I did in February, where when I watched that, I was like, shit, this is holy crap. Like these guys are really, really convincing me right now that like we are missing the boat and not pushing them. And it actually, for me, kind of emboldened some of the detractors. You know, there's those traditionalist gatekeepers who are like hesitant about both guys, and they have all of these criticisms. And I felt like this match actually lended credibility to some of those, because sometimes they do have these bad tendencies, and like that was sort of leaned into a little bit. At the end of the day, if what you're wanting to see is just like an entertaining match, it was entertaining enough. But I didn't feel like I was watching an epic struggle between two guys that just wrestled in one of the best matches of the year a few months ago. And this was part two of it. Like this was tears beneath it. Ultimately, Gabe wins. And then, you know, I have to say it, and I'll kick it over to you, Jeremy, but like Gabe won using the Death Rider into his, pile driver variant. And that just felt fucking weird, because I'm like, you know, he's acknowledged that it doesn't make sense. The commentaries acknowledged that it doesn't make sense. The crowd, I do think that the crowd was with them out of respect, because they were still reacting to the 1-2s. They were still chanting, but it's a huge difference between the reactions that we saw between the Takeshita match and the main event and this match. And it shouldn't be that way in Osaka. It's a smart crowd. It's weird.
And it was just a huge difference from February. And I get it, like there wasn't the lion mark reveal like there was in February, but it does feel like, these guys have cooled off since then. And I think it could be a lot of things. You know, you look at both Gabe Kidd and Tsuji, like what have they done since then? They were both bumped out of New Japan Cup early. Tsuji has not had any really exciting title defenses. Gabe Kidd hasn't really, he lost to Ishii in Chicago. Like these guys have not done a ton since that great February match. So I think they partly cooled off of that. Also, I think this crowd was probably burnt out from all the shenanigans on this card. Because during that dog collar death match, they were, I forgot to mention, they were like deadly silent through that match. There would be points where the seconds would try and get the crowd in, and they would try to like the War Dogs bark and stuff like that. And there would be a few slight chants, but I felt throughout the match it was very quiet, and it seemed the crowd was kind of over all the House of Torture stuff. So I'm sure that probably played into part of it too. Maybe it's also some of the AEW stuff. And Gabe also, he had the Death Rider logo with the War Dogs logo on one of his knee pads. So yeah, I think there was just a lot of weirdness going on. And then, like you mentioned, the structure of this match, it didn't hit the way like their February match did. I still thought it was very good, and they were doing cool stuff. The Gabe Tope, the Fosbury flop from Tsuji at the beginning, and lots of big strikes. Again, Tsuji trying to do the whole, he looks at his hand when he chops Gabe on the chest, and a lot of big strikes, a lot of big moves. There was the botch where Gabe tried to do the springboard senton to Tsuji when he was draped over the ropes. I've never really seen Gabe do a springboard before. Not sure why he was trying now. He seemed very uncomfortable trying to springboard. So that was kind of an awkward spot there, and him trying to sell that, but also continuing to move on to the next spot. So I think there were small things like that. But I mean, overall, there was good action, a lot of great counters between their moves towards the end. Like you mentioned, Gabe getting the Death Rider, then followed by the Pile Driver to get the win. So overall, it was a good matchup, but their February match was a match of the year contender. I would not put this anywhere close to that. And the crowd reactions not being as loud as February, it's also a little concerning in the same city. And it's like, all right, did we already, screw the pooch on both these guys that were like the prime candidates to be, the next aces? And it's like, all right, what's happening now? And, Gabe did cut a post-match promo, and the crowd was singing his song after the promo, and they seemed to be into what he was saying. And he was talking about, all these guys are linked together, and he's talking about, Okada, Omega, and all the Tanahashi and Okada and Shibata. He's talking about all these guys linked together, and he's like, me and Tsuji are the next two, up and stuff like that. And so the crowd seemed to be into what they were saying, but just the level of enthusiasm, like that February crowd seemed like they were like ready to like rush to barricade to like cheer for their guys. And like this just kind of seemed like it was just kind of a normal crowd that, they're liking what they were watching, but they were not like over the roof where they were in February.
Here's another thing too, Jeremy, is like self-promotion is invaluable. Like a lot of the biggest stars in sports entertainment and pro wrestling and combat sports, they self-promoted, Floyd Mayweather, Muhammad Ali, Conor McGregor, The Rock, list goes on and on, Gorgeous George. So that is one of the things that has always been positive about Gabe. He's a really good promo and he can self-promote. But when it starts getting to the historical context stuff where it's like, it was these guys, then these guys, then these guys, and then us, like what made Okada and Omega wasn't that they were like, we're like, the Musketeers, or we're like, they didn't have to do the comparison point to allude to what they were. They just went out there and fucking tore the house down on a level that nobody else could do. And that's kind of what those other couplings that he was alluding to from previous generations were also able to do. Now we've seen this coupling do it once, but the other two times, not so much. And that's not necessarily the greatest track record. Just saying it doesn't make it true. Doing it is what makes it true. And they're not doing it.
Yeah.
The other thing too, and I think it is important to talk about, is like the narrative standpoint where kayfabe really does matter a lot in the greater context of New Japan Pro Wrestling, especially to the fans and the audience. Like the War Dog thing does not make fucking sense. Considering what happened in LA with Bullet Club versus War Dogs. And then a few days, with the Bucks versus, and I haven't been back on the show to like really talk about any of it. Obviously, almost every week you've had somebody else on and you guys have all kind of gotten to dissect it to death. But, I actually wasn't even going to bring it up, but the fact that he came out during the press conference, he was like, let's get the elephant out of the room. And then he didn't really actually address what was going on, but he like quoted this like speech from Woodrow Wilson to kind of skirt around the idea that there was, criticisms being lobbied to him in the media within Japan about the conflict of interest and the non-cohesion of the story. And then the next night, he's got the War Dogs. And to be honest, I actually don't know what the fucking, or not War Dogs. What's it called?
Death Riders.
the Death Riders logo, I wouldn't have noticed if commentary hadn't mentioned it, because I actually don't know what the War Dogs logo looks like, and I don't know what the Death Riders logo looks like. Did he have both on the one?
Yeah.
Knee pad?
One knee pad was the lion mark, and the other was the dual faction.
And see, I didn't know which was which. Like I was trying to pay really close attention all throughout the match. I'm like, which one is the fucking logo? Like, I don't know, bro. So I couldn't tell, but it doesn't make sense, especially when you're in the midst of this, like, for better, for worse, whether we like it, whether we're fans of it or not, the War Dogs versus House of Torture feud is a huge sticking point within this company. It was like one of this big dramatic send off for Finlay. Just the match prior to that, you'd want that to be like kind of playing into the psyche of Gabe Kidd going into this match, because he wasn't there to support, he couldn't be there for his, but it just seemed like a non-factor, a non-issue. And it doesn't jive when you've also got the ward or the mock shit going on at the same time. It just makes no sense. And it flies in the face of what made this dude popular earlier in the year. For better, for worse, you can try and like explain it away with kayfabe that he's a mercenary for hire. Their objectives align when it comes to AEW, but it doesn't make sense in a New Japan context. And he feels like a guy that's trying to skirt around it within New Japan to appease their audience and fan base. And they don't seem happy about it, honestly. And it seems if long-term he is bound for North America, it probably doesn't matter. But knowing how much like the Japanese audience matters to this guy, it is weird. And then here's the last thing I'll say too. He needs to pick a fucking lane when it comes to his character, because he's in this heel group. I know they're a little bit face leaning, but then he's also doing the mock shit, and they're clearly like ultra heels.
Yeah.
And he's portraying himself as somewhat kind of a heel within the match, the confines of the match, but then he's paying respect to Tsuji at the end. And then he's, enjoying the adulation of the crowd and paying respect to Tanahashi. And like at one point when we were like, this guy is Stone Cold Steve Austin and he's an anti-hero, kind of made sense. But at this point with what's going on, it's all over the place. It's not cohesive. And it felt like, how do we define what's going on with him and how he is and how he's working and what his character and motivations are if none of it makes any sense? It just starts falling apart, and everything stops to mean anything at a certain point.
Yeah. I do think there is a little bit now confusion with the character, and what is the direction? Because it was a very much anti-hero. I'm what New Japan should be, not these other guys. And then now, he's respecting his opponents, which totally War Dogs all bring bodies, bring gold. We don't make friends of anybody else. And then now he's respecting Tanahashi, but then he's also trying to take over AEW of Jon Moxley. So there is a lot of motivations that don't all align at times, and so it does come off weird. Like what are we doing now?
It's strangely divergent. It's all over the place. And I do think that there's room for nuance in pro wrestling. I think you can tell more complex stories than just what's historically been portrayed on the screen. But at the end of the day, it still all needs to make sense. It can't just be throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks and hoping you get by with whatever, and that's kind of what I feel like some of these workers are trying to get away with. Like, it just doesn't work.
We had some questions here. Doc says, with Tsuji and Takeshita both losing before G1, do we see this as losing up the card?
I think for both of them that there's a good chance of that. But clearly Tsuji had lesser reactions on the evening than Takeshita did. And that's not necessarily boding well for him if he's next up. But that didn't deter them from putting Shota Umino in the spot last year. So who knows?
Yeah, I think he's still getting better reactions than Shota. I could see these guys just being the finals. I definitely think both guys will get into at least that final three from each block. I definitely think one of those guys could win. Fauci says Tsuji made his big debut a couple Dominions back. In hindsight, do you think it would have been a better choice to have him beat Sonata for the title that night?
Yeah. Looking back at it now, considering where I wanted them to go with Sonata at the time and where it ended up going, yeah, it would have been much better for Tsuji to just have won the title and done something fresh and exciting. And who knows, that like it's one of those what if situations, but yeah, asking me several years later, yeah, I think that would have been better. At the time, I didn't agree, but now, yeah, I do think it would have been better.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I wanted him to win because I thought it would have been cool, kind of a surprise up, the next, quote unquote, Rainmaker shock. But yeah, even now, yeah, in hindsight, I definitely think it would have been the better call. You would have instantly made him. He would have been seen as a star from the get go. There wouldn't have been like this weird like building up period. Like, boom, straight from day one, this guy, he's a main eventer, he's a star, he's a champion, he's going to go into G1 as champion. And I mean, there were other guys that could have been in main events, and he could have been in, semi-main events, and I think the tour would have been fine. And then there's a link with him and Naito. You could have done maybe him versus Naito in the Dome, and who knows how that would have done. Or you could have had him drop the belt back to Sonata in the fall to do your Sonata Naito main event. So yeah, I think have that world title run would have really gave him some credibility, and I think he would have been better off if he had won the title that night. Next question from Def Triangle 720. Do you think that the fan reception they gave at Dominion shows that the AEW bit was hurt him, or was it just a crowd that night after all the matches they've seen?
I think that what has happened with him and AEW has hurt his credibility with the Japanese audience. I don't know if there will actually be recovering from it, because so much of that connection was built on this organic idealism that just probably won't ever be recovered. The work will always be there. The character will always be there, but it was a moment in time, and I think it's been lost.
Yeah, I did see some positive reactions from Japanese fans on Twitter of pictures of him with the global title. So I think there are some fans that are happy for him. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to continue to monitor the crowd reactions for the remainder of the year and see if he ever gets as hot of a reaction. Because even after Osaka, he was in February, he was getting some really hot reactions, and going into New Japan Cup, he was getting cheered like crazy. And so it's going to be interesting to see what does G1 look like? What does the fall look like? Is he going to kind of rebound and get that big reaction back, or is it going to be faded and he's going to have to pivot? Next question here from Les Christian 7252. Do you guys still feel like Gabe needs to leave Bull Club War Dogs after the night the group had by looking weak as a whole for the first time since forming together at this event 2 years ago?
I'm nervous about the future of War Dogs in general.
Yeah, it goes back to what you were saying with NWO Japan Team 2000. It seems like, at first it seemed like the end play was like we just need to get House of Torture out of Bullet Club, but maybe it is, we are just going to get rid of Bullet Club in general, and we did that because it's just going to be House of Torture, and that these guys are going to be gone at some point.
I mean, okay, so this is something that I heard earlier in the year. It's not my scoop. This was a rumor that came through members of Social Suplex Podcast Network and had been heard in other places. But basically, like, there was an earlier rumor that sometime in the summer there would be a play from AEW to potentially try and court certain members of Bull Club War Dogs. Now, who those members were, I wasn't privy to. Where the rumor came from, I couldn't substantiate the claim, but it was something that was like kind of spread to me, and I held it close to the chest. And then you turn around and it's like we're at the second half of the year, and right around the summertime, Tekla gets signed. I don't think that is a coincidence. Suddenly, Clark Connors is debuting a tire gimmick and completely pivoting from who he had portrayed himself to be in the death match just prior to Super Juniors, right around the same time that his in real life girlfriend is getting signed to AEW. And then Gabe Kidd is showing up and aligning himself with War Dogs and doing, with Death Riders and doing kayfabe that contradicts entirely what had been taking place within New Japan's television. Now, does that mean that these guys are going tomorrow? No. Have we seen the playbook of what Tony Khan does when he is trying to court guys from New Japan and ingratiate them to his audience and showcase them before bringing them over when their contracts are up? Yes, that is what I think is happening. And I don't think it's coincidence that all of these things coincide with one another right around the same time that the rumors, and it's not just something that was heard here. I don't know if anybody else like that's out in the press has like actually come out and said it, but it was something that like there was hush hush whispers and tones in like January and February that this would happen. And now it's happening. And I know that there were people who were like, well, it's just for Forbidden Door. And well, it's just for, the time when Super Juniors is taking place. But it's like, there was already word on the street that something like this might potentially happen. And now it's already starting to happen. So yeah, I think that's what's happening. I wouldn't be surprised hypothetically. Now, of course I could be wrong. Will Bullet Club potentially stick around? Maybe. But I just wouldn't be surprised if they phase it out just like they did NWO Japan, and House of Torture is going to be the spiritual successor to what the Bullet Club was in a domestic sense and be the victor when everything is said and done.
Yeah, like they lost a battle by being kicked out of Bullet Club, but then they could win the war if completely just getting rid of Bullet Club altogether. Which, on one hand, we have mentioned the Bullet Club name and branding, it's been around forever. Like there needs to be a new group, a new refresh, but then for it to kind of be absorbed by House of Torture, like that doesn't seem great.
Chaos is gone. LIJ is gone. Suzuki-gun is gone. All the old heavy hitters, the ones that were around for a long time where you're like, oh, well, they've been around for a long time. They're gone. I wouldn't be surprised if Bullet Club is next on the chopping block.
Yeah. Well, I think let's to the main event, IWGP World Heavyweight Title match. The Goto Revolution continues on. Hiroki Goto defeats the Rampage Dragon Shingo Takagi in 28 minutes and 25 seconds. What are your thoughts on the match?
Yeah, so a little longer than your typical Hiroki Goto world title main event, but just classic New Japan Pro Wrestling main event style match. The crowd came to life when these two guys came out, and it wasn't just a pro Goto crowd, although I would say at the start of it, it was definitely split, but it was like 60-40 Goto.
Yeah.
And then as time went on, you saw shifts in the tide. Like you saw times where the crowd became more Shingo heavy, and then they became more Goto heavy, and they were dueling chants all throughout. It's just this Osaka crowd was so invested in the outcome here and in both guys. I was hoping for all of the story elements, quote unquote, and angles and shifts and character changes and re-debuts and yada, yada, yada that took place in the show. I was hoping for something, a new wrinkle for Shingo, something, but unfortunately it didn't happen. The one thing I will say though is, if you were trying to look up and down the card and be like, who could be our next champion? Shingo made quite a fucking case for himself to be like, hey guys, I'm still right here and I'm still Shingo. And it is funny for all the dudes that were in our, and ladies, but mostly dudes. Let's not kid ourselves. Mostly the dudes that are in our Discord that like just in the past month or two been like, Shingo's washed. He's not as good as he was. He's not performing that well. It's like, got a slew of great performances at the tail end of last year, including the beginning of this year. But look at this match. This is clear indication that this guy, when motivated on the right stage with the right opponent, he can still go he's as good as anybody else in the world. And I really enjoyed this match. I thought it might go a little shorter, but there is a narrative standpoint where it's like, Goto likes to keep a faster pace. He likes to go shorter. Shingo likes to take guys into the deep waters. And maybe that started to kind of play itself out, later on in the match. But Goto showed everybody why he is the world champion, how good he is. And it was a situation like Chris said last week, where it's like every title defense this guy has had, you could hypothetically see him losing. The fact that he's gone 7 deep already and beat everybody and turned away every challenger is amazing, considering it's Hiroki fucking Goto, a guy that we never thought was going to win this title. The match was awesome. I don't know if I'm as high as some of the cage match raters. Like, I think it's like the Eddie Murphy cracker thing. Like, people are thirsty for New Japan Pro Wrestling. Like, you look up and down this card, and as good as the card was, this was the essence of what New Japan is and what people want. I don't know if I thought it was like a match of the year contender personally. I thought it was really, really, really good, but not like upper echelon like some people.
I was like 4.5 on it.
I would go close to 4.5, maybe 4 1/3. 4 1/3 repeating. I thought it was great. I thought the match was great. I thought both guys were great. I thought the crowd was awesome. At the end of the match, you know what I was really realistically hoping for, Jeremy? And this is before we knew what the play-in rounds looked like. I wanted Yoshihashi to challenge for the fucking title. We didn't have a clear identified challenger waiting in the wings. I knew that Zach might be that guy. Yoshihashi was right there at ringside. I was hoping that he would just fucking get in the ring or even in the backstage, like interrupt, because it didn't happen at the ring, like in the ring. So I was like, oh my God, I want Goto to be in the back drinking his beer and Yoshihashi to walk up with this beer and like,
throwing his face.
You think he's gonna cheers him, but he bangs it fucking hard. And he's like, oi. That's what I wanted. I wanted the Bishamon powers to explode. And like, that would be a perfect title defense. If that's where you're going and you're going to do a title defense before G1, that's the perfect guy to do it with. But we're getting Zach again, which is fine. Zach's not going to win. So it's like, Goto's probably carrying this title to the Dome, which is fine. You know what it reminds me of a little bit? The Shingo reign. It's like he carried the company on his back. He was the best champion. He's going to carry it all the way. And then we're going to forget about him when he drops that belt in the Dome and he never like really contends on a serious level ever again. Like, that's probably what's happening. But the match was great. I thought this was the highlight of the night, and something where if you didn't see it, you should really go out of your way and check it out for sure.
Yeah, I thought the match rocked, and these guys have had a history of matches in the past, with Shingo having the winning record against these guys in their rivalry. And yeah, it was definitely more of a classic New Japan main event style. I was kind of hoping they would lean a little bit more in their Never style matchups. It was still very hard hitting, but I feel like the Never matches they've had in the past were more hard hitting, a little bit faster, where this is kind of was a little bit more, meticulous, kind of that, played out New Japan main event style. And so again, great matchup, but I was hoping, they would lean a little bit in the more than their playbook. And, they had the whole story of, Shingo from that rivalry, he would steal Goto's GTR and it's the Takagi Revolution until he was doing all that stuff here. Big lariat exchanges. He had hit the Burning Dragon at one point. Goto was able to kick out of that. Goto was busting out all his stuff, shouting Kai, GTW, the forward GTR. And so, yeah, overall, it's a really hard-hitting, great story, great matchup. And, yeah, Goto was able to hit the GTR Kai. That's where he traps the arm, hits the GTR, and pin Shingo. And then, yeah, post-match, because part of the build, Shingo was saying he has no faction, no wife, no belt, and Goto told him to go get a wife, essentially. He's the guy.
Did we think that the ultimate dad in the history of professional wrestling was going to lose his world title on Father's Day? Come on, like get fucking real, dude.
Yeah, who knows? With the way Gato likes to get heat, that could have been a way to get heat. But
if you take Goto's world title away from him on Father's Day, I'm done with this promotion. That's it. That's booking malpractice.
Yeah, but yeah,
he's a father. He's got children watching at home.
Yeah, who knows? They could have been there.
On Father's Day.
But yeah, Goto gets the big win here, retains, confetti flying, so he'll be going into G1 presumably as champion if he can beat Zack Sabre Jr. at the Tanahashi Jam on June 29th. Let's Commission 7252 says, do you think Tsuji, Hiromu, and Shingo form a faction alongside Teton and bring in the Youngbloods? I don't get why they act like they need permission to form a faction if they're asking the team together.
That's an interesting question. I don't know, man. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I know they had like their like press conference thing. I didn't watch it, but essentially it was Shingo, Hiromu, and Tsuji, and it sounded like they were talking about wanting to still team together and kind of what their future was. But yeah, I feel like they've been teaming together anyway on undercards, and I just kind of feel like, all right, if you're not doing something new, then why aren't they just a faction? And
I'm ready to fucking call it.
Just
I don't need to knock off LIJ. I think it's bullshit that those guys on the outside are going to be
Los Tranquilos.
Los Tranquilos. I mentioned this in the Discord, but that reminds me of like in the movies where like the quarterback who, loved, is always fantasizing about their glory years in high school when they're, went to state and shit like that. That's what Naito's doing. He's like, remember when we were Los Ingobernables? Kind of the same, but we're Tranquilo now. It's like, I don't need that. Like, let's these dudes do something different and move on and inject new life into the company. It's like when you got a plant and you prune and you irrigate and all that shit, like you cut off the dead leaves so that new leaves can grow. We don't need more LIJ. We're done with Naito.
Yeah, I don't know if I wouldn't mind these guys initially teaming. They're still teaming. Like nothing's really changed besides there's no LIJ logo. And Youngbloods joined them. Maybe I don't know what the connection really would be there with those guys joining them. I guess
something needs to change. So many things in this company need to change. Like we're at the precipice of change, and they're hesitant to do it. Everybody is hesitant to like move forward and change, and it's desperately needed in this company.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens there. Death Triangle 720. Which one do you think was better, Dominion this year or last year?
I don't even know what happened last year, and I'm going to say probably last year. Probably.
Yeah, last year was better. You had the Despy, Ishimori.
I didn't even really like that match that much. Junior's on top. That's crazy.
Well, let's see what else was last year. So Dominion 2024. Let's see here. All right, Dominion 6-9. So you had that main event. You had Moxley versus Evil in the Lumberjack match. You had the Shingo Hanare Never title match that went to a draw. You had the four-way tag elimination match for both tag titles that TMDK won. Cobb versus Ishii TV title. LIJ versus Hantai for the Never six-man. Ocon versus Yuya in the Catch Rules match for KOPW.
Man, that's not sounding better.
I think it was better. We had TMDK versus War Dogs, and then Naito versus Callum Newman.
Let's just say this. These are not Dominion 2018 cards, okay?
Yeah.
Across the board. Like that's where we need to get back to. Like if this show, if we're not having Dominion, which is basically their SummerSlam, getting show of the year votes, then something has gone fatally wrong.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, this is not getting nominated.
Bro, yeah, I don't even think we can nominate this show.
No.
That's terrible.
And Death Triangle 720 falls up on a scale from 1 to 10. How would you rate this Dominion card?
4. Why are you laughing? That's not funny. It's true.
Yeah, I would say I would say 5, but 4 or 5.
You're wrong.
Yeah.
4.
Not great. Yeah.
All right, so 4.5 according to Keepin It Strong Style.
Yeah, I'm not nominating this. Yeah, 4.5 out of 10. Not nominating this for a show of the year. Ready to say with gas. What was your favorite match at this Dominion?
We already went over that.
What was you would say Bolton Takeshita was your, or the Shingo
The main event is the best match of the night.
Yeah. That was my favorite match, too. Also, I loved good. Bolton and Takeshita was fun, too. And then Rambo says, is Gato cooked, given the depth of young talent as well as servable veterans? How long can parity booking round robin tournaments and House of Torture Heat-filled big shows be allowed to continue? Do you believe there's any sense of urgency to move into the future?
Yeah, I think that you did what Chris said last week, where it's like you're forming an opinion in the form of a question. But yeah, I think you're correct in your assessment.
Yeah, and maybe they're saying they want to move to the future, but their actions are not backing up that claim or statement. I don't feel like the booking does not feel like there is an urgency to get somebody over. It seems like we're doing the same kind of slow, plodding booking, and the young guys are having to go through all these trials and heartbreak and agony to get to the main event, and it's just not happening in a compelling way.
And you know what, Jeremy? This is the sad truth of professional wrestling, and it's the one thing that people are not going to want to hear because everybody has their special guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is the truth. Historically speaking, as somebody who has studied the numbers and has really invested a good portion of their life in this craft and this fandom, one or two guys can be at the top of the card as the tip top dudes. Wrestling is a star driven business, and every single, without any sort of exception, every single time that a company was hot and did record numbers and boomed, it was basically centered around one individual star at the top of the card that the other potential top stars centered around. At the most, in the very rare occasion, you can maybe for a short period of time have two tippy top stars, but eventually there can only really be one. It's like Highlander. There can only be one.
Yeah.
And people want all of their special guys to be treated. I think that this is a huge problem that AEW has, even though they're in a much healthier situation where they have an embarrassment of guys who are ready to be. You just got to pull the trigger and kind of decide, do we want it to be Hangman? Do we want it to be, Will? Do we want it to be Swerve? Like which of these generational talents do we want to potentially go with? New Japan's maybe not quite there because they've got a lot of young guys that they need to decide, but like they're trying to appease too many people all at the same time while also not being bold enough to go with any of these potential top guys. And I know the fans have been invested and they want Uemura and Tsuji and Shooter and Oiwa and Gabe Kidd, and the list goes on, all to kind of be top guys, but it does not work that way. They might all be at the top of the card, and maybe there'll be a big four and a big six, but realistically, there's going to be a big one. It was Okada for a decade plus, and at no time was anybody really the real top of the card, including Kenny Omega, including Naito. They never, including Tanahashi. When it was Okada, it was Okada. When it was Tanahashi, it was Tanahashi. We're waiting for the health of this business for them to go with one of these guys. And it's going to take them actually going with one of them to try it out. And so far they've tried a little bit with Shota, and that's not worked out for them.
And yeah, even in those attempts, like you mentioned, they're like we were talking about last week. Like, if you want him to make it done, why not just win G1? Like, there's so much things they could have done better to push Umino that they've totally messed up. And now, like I mentioned earlier, we're in an aceless New Japan. Like, pick somebody and go with them. Look what's happening in Noah with Ozawa. Like, he's a young guy. They picked him. We're going to push him and go with him, build a faction around him, and he's getting great reactions. He's becoming a top star in Noah. Like, pick somebody and push them.
Give me a company in a time period that you thought was really great in pro wrestling.
I know, Attitude Era.
rocking Austin, and that's one of the few times where you have two guys at the very, very tip top. Give me another one. You can give me any.
80s.
80s what? 80s Crockett?
Yeah.
Flair. 80s WWF? Hogan. 80s New Japan? Inoki. 80s All Japan? Baba. Like, the company always revolves around one guy. When business is up and they have a top star, that's what wrestling is about. Whether people, it is so controversial to say this, I think, because people are invested in stars and they want to believe that everybody, there's like they all deserve it sort of thing. But it's not true. The reality is only one guy can be Roman Reigns. Only one guy can be John Cena at the tip top in an era. Like, that's just what it is. You know, Mizawa was was All Japan in the 80s, you know, Kobashi, Noah, thousands. Like, that's just what it is. Only like companies you can kind of point to that didn't really have like a central key figure and had some levels of success are going to be like minor companies who didn't really get to the tip tops of like commercial success. You know, if you look at like, ROH in the 2000s or ECW in the 90s, like, sure, you know, because those were like third brand outlaw groups that like didn't, if we're being really honest, they didn't draw money.
Yeah.
But companies that are viable, that draw money, they're star driven. They have a top star that everybody else congregates around. And the fact that like New Japan, I think they know this, but the fact that they haven't like centered in on anybody to do this and be that person is the biggest shortcoming that they have right now.
Yeah. And I don't know what they're waiting for, because they just keep losing stars and not wanting to push a trigger on anybody else. So they're just going to be in
Not that it matters. I also think that the fact that AEW didn't pull the trigger on Kenny Omega being that guy for the first 5 years of their company is like the biggest mistake that they ever made, personally.
Yeah. So yeah, New Japan, there's a lot for them to try and figure out for the future. It doesn't look great right now.
And it's unfortunate. I hate coming back to the show. And like, this is it. But it's like, if we didn't realistically come out here and tell the truth, we'd be bitches.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man, we've been doing this for what, almost 8 years?
Yeah, something like that.
I'm not trying to go out like a bitch like New Japan is.
Yeah. Gonna keep it 100 here. So do you want to run us through?
This show is Keeping It Strong Style. It's not Keeping It 100. That's a different show.
You want to run through the soul cards and they're coming up?
Yes. So we've got Wednesday, June 18th, the Amori Martial Arts Hall. We have the debut of Zane J, former Strong Survivor, making his debut as a Noge Dojo Young Lion, and he'll be taking on the debuting Tetsuya Matsumoto. 24-year-old Matsumoto stands at 180 centimeters and weighs in at 85 kilograms. That's about 5'10" is the height, wrestled and grappled in high school before working as a personal trainer for 5 years. Matsumoto competed in top flight bodybuilding competitions before passing the dojo tryout in 2023 and officially entering the dojo in April of 2024. So we'll see what he's made of. Guy looks like a shit brick house, but
yeah, he's jacked.
Again, looking forward to seeing him, but not heavyweight material. Just throwing it out there. Seriously. What do you want? Do we want to go through all of these cards, or do we just want to point out like the bullet points for each of these shows? Because I feel like that's more important, honestly.
Yeah, we can point out stuff. I mean, on that first card, it's going to be the Young Lion debut. That's the big thing. Everything else is just kind of multi-man stuff.
It's multi-mans. It's all preview tags. On Thursday, June 19th, we have another New Japan Soul Tour match. Zane J and Matsumoto will be rematching on that evening. And again, it's looking like it's mostly preview tags up and down the card.
Yep.
Fantastica Mania Mexico will be taking place from Arena Mexico on Friday, June 20th. We have several New Japan involved matches. CRU, which is the team of Action Andretti and Leo Rush, will take on Robbie X and Rocky Romero. They'll be teaming with Rocky Romero and Robbie X, taking on Los Depredadores, Magnus, Ruhido, and Defunto and Zandakan Jr. Ultimo Guerrero will be taking on Yota Tsuji. Hiromu Takahashi, Shingo Takagi, and Titan will be unaffiliated. We'll be teaming up to take on the United Empire team of Francesco Akira, Templario, and TJP. Volador Jr. will take on Ricochet, Kevin Knight versus Neon. And the main event, Mascara Dorada, Mystico, and Bandito, and Hologram. Not necessarily the most New Japan stacked card ever for a Fantasticmania. If there's one match that I personally, as a fan, am looking forward to, it's probably that Ultimo Guerrero Yota Tsuji match. That sounds pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, that should be fun. Main event should be fun. It did get changed. It was going to be a trios title match with All the Sky team versus Bandito, Hologram, Commander. Commander getting hurt, so it's changed to a tag team match there. But that tag main event should be fun as well. Kevin Knight and Neon should be fun also.
June 21st, we have another New Japan Soul Tour, mostly, again, opening Zane J versus Matsumoto. The remainder of the card is going to be preview tags. There is one notable match between Hiroshi Tanahashi and Tomoaki Hanma on the final Ace Tour there. Monday, June 22nd from Cork and Hall. This is probably where we're getting into the actual like nuts and bolts of the Soul Tour. On that show, there will be G1 Climax play-in matches, Tomohiro Ishii versus Drilla Maloney and Taichi versus Callum Newman, both for the the first one for the B block, second one for the A block. So that on paper looks to be the better of the two pairings for the play-in tournament. Global title bout is set for Tokyo Budokan July 4th for the Tanahashi Jam in Aichi at the Dolphins Arena. June 29th, we'll see a special event, Nagoya Dolphins Arena. The last event to be held in the building before its closure at the end of the month, titled Tanahashi Jam. The event will be produced by Hiroshi Tanahashi himself with a series of special matchups, as well as 3 title bouts now confirmed. We've got Katsuya Murashima versus Daiki Odashima from Noah, Taguchi, Umino, and Tanahashi teaming up to take on Leona, Hiromu, and Fujinami. We also have Marufuji and Tanahashi. Is Tanahashi competing multiple times on the show?
Yeah, so he has 2 matches as of right now.
Okay. Marufuji and Tanahashi taking on Oiwa and Kiyomiya. The New Japan World TV title will be on the line as ELP takes on X for an open challenge. The Never Openweight title will be on the line as Oleg Bolton takes on Yuji Nagata. And then Hiroki Goto defends the world title against Zack Sabre Jr. And then I'm guessing that now are all of these Soul Tour shows being televised?
Yes, all the Soul cards I put down are being aired on New Japan World.
Bro, I don't want to. Like, this does not look like what? This looks like some shit that ChatGPT threw together.
Nope, it's New Japan Soul. Get into it.
Oh boy, yeah. See, I thought you were just like giving me the rundown of the whole entire tour, but you're just giving me like the week's matches.
Yeah, that's what we got to watch this coming week.
Well, you might have to. I don't know. Well, we'll see about that. But that's going to do it for the rundown. We've got the news here. There's no news, so that's great. And then we got 2 last questions. We're going to get out of here. So first question, Hot Stuff Hoffman asked, where do you see Yuto and Oscar being slotted when they return from excursion?
Well, I mean, they're currently building them as a tag team. Their whole excursion's been teaming. They're about to probably win the Tamashii tag team title. So I'm assuming they're going to be, brought in as a, top team in a division. And so, like I was saying, Chris last week, I could see them coming back like right before World Tag League and, being in part of that tournament.
It would be weird to have had them teamed the entirety of their excursion and then bring them back and not be a team.
Yeah.
For that reason, they're not going to be a team. When they come back,
one of them's going to join House of Torture. Yeah.
And actually, we're never going to see Oscar Luebe again. Actually, he's signed a deal with the PC. He's going to be debuting in Orlando and
in a year.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that they they stand a good chance to be a main player in the like tag team unit, picture, and probably get sidelined there for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, the tag division is one where I think it's easier to become, push in that division because there are not a lot of great tag teams. So yeah, they could probably end up with some success in that division and kind of be the pillars of that division for a while.
But what happens is like you get some success in the tag team division, and then like 4 years goes by and you're still a tag team in the tag division and not really breaking off. So I could potentially see that happening to them too, which who knows? I don't know. Maybe that's a good little niche, might be a little safer than what's happened with some of these other lines. Because imagine if you bring them in, what are their real viable options considering the log jam that's taken place with all the other young lions returned from excursion over the past 3 years?
Yeah, I don't see them leapfrogging any of the guys that are currently there.
Yeah, stay your lane unless Oscar Luebe wants to get some injectables, gas it up a little bit. That's a guy. He's got a frame, bro.
Yeah, bro. Give me Oscar versus Bolton.
Yeah. So last question here. Stay with Gas says, do you think that the slow build process is still working for NJPW? Personally, I like how all the young guys have been booked except for Ren, Oiwa, and Shota. If the plan is Goto holds the title and then drops it to Tsuji, who should be his first defense. Oh, if he is to drop it to him, who should be Tsuji's first defense and who should he eventually lose it to?
So first part, I do not think the slow build process is working. They don't have the benefit to build slowly. They're losing stars. They're not getting anybody over. None of the young guys are over. They need to be moving faster. I think Narita in House of Torture was a waste, and Oiwa and Shooter, they really haven't progressed to that main event star level yet. As far as Tsuji beating Goto, that's kind of been my fantasy booking for what's to come at the Dome. Tsuji winning G1 and beating Goto. And first defense, I have no idea. I don't know who's going to be hot at that time or who they're going to be building up at that point. But, I mean, Gabe Kidd would probably be a good first challenge.
It might be Evil, bro.
Ew.
Well, I mean, think about it. Like, if you are building him up as like the fresh new young baby face, he needs a top heel to be the foil, someone for him to overcome. If we're leading out to a long-term feud between Evil and Finlay, and Evil's the one that comes out the victor, he might be the next challenger for the title after that.
Yeah.
Especially since like what happened with them in last year's New Japan Cup.
Yeah. So yeah, you can see. We'll see what happens there.
But I love that he's like, I love the way that they've been booked, except Ren and Oiwa and Shota.
Half the group.
Only 50% of the guys have been booked poorly so far.
Oh man.
So yeah, that's gonna do it for the questions. And that's going to do it for the show.
Yeah, that's going to wrap it up. So, Josh, it's great having you back on the show this week. Next week, we'll be back to
Proclivity of Positivity.
Which is funny because Floyd messaged me before the show. He's like, I really enjoyed Dominion.
That dog collar death match was awesome.
Oh man.
How about that return? How about that Doki return? That caught me off guard, right?
It did.
Exciting. They're doing fresh stuff.
Well, next week we'll be back to review what's going on with the New Japan Soul Tour. We'll have our first playing guys by the time we record next week. So remember, if you want to watch our show live or listen without ads, sign up at patreon.com/KI Strong Style. You can also make a donation by visiting socialplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure to connect with us on X and Blue Sky. Follow us at KI Strong Style, at Social Suplex, at Jeremy Donovan On Facebook, follow us at facebook.com/social suplex and the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group. On Reddit, I'm the Pro Black Guy, and Josh is Keeping It Strong Style. On YouTube, we are at Social Suplex. Join our Social Suplex Discord server to interact with us and other wrestling fans. You can email me, Jeremy at socialsuplex.com. Check out all the other shows that we have here on the network. One Issue Radio is by Rich Latta and James Boyd. All Things Elite with Floyd and Austin. Imps WWE Adventure with the Implications Matthew Mayer. Wrestling Art with Chris Things. Tone Talk with Ali and Leah, and the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review, and we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
It's your bun.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.
If you love to travel, Capital One has a rewards credit card that's perfect for you. With the Capital One Venture X card, you earn unlimited double miles on everything you buy. Plus, you get premium benefits at a collection of luxury hotels when you book on Capital One Travel. And with Venture X, you get access to over 1,000 airport lounges worldwide. Open up a world of travel possibilities with the Capital One Venture X card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.